You say you love me, say you're thinking of me, but you're just lonely. Tell me I'm special, but to you I'm anybody. 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 Anybody. But to you I'm anybody. But to you I'm anybody. But to you I'm anybody. Say you love me, say you're thinking of me, but you're just lonely. Tell me I'm special, but to you I'm anybody. 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 Anybody. But to you I'm anybody. But to you I'm anybody. But to you I'm anybody. Anybody. But to you. But to you. But to you. To you I'm anybody, to you I'm anybody, to you I'm anybody, anybody, to you I'm anybody, to you I'm anybody, to you I'm anybody, anybody, to you, to you, to you. You must think that I'm a restless case because I ran away, because I ran away. If you listen to the words I say, you know that I'm okay, you know it's just a phase.
only fans putting on this round of everyone is doing hate snakes, and this snake will end it here for the double kill points of Kyrie on the back of his fight. Cancels back and forth.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the University, UK, and Republic of Ireland's Spring 2024 Teamfight Tactics season. We are here again with the Grand Finals, Week 2. So obviously, last week we saw the top 16 players in the UK go head-to-head in 3 rounds of TFT. We've now whittled that down. The final 8 players will play 3 more games today to find out who is the ultimate champion of the United Kingdom. I am Drysalad XXL, back again to bring you all the action from these games, and joining me as ever is the lovely Christopher, if you want to say hello to the people.
Yeah, thanks for that introduction. Really excited for the games we have today. I think we have some really good competitors here with really good, decent understanding of what the meta is.
Absolutely, yeah, and to just the side of me over here, we can see those top 8 players who I mentioned before who will be competing for a chance for that top prize tonight. Obviously, their points have carried over from last week, so that score still does matter. Bear that in mind as we go through these games. In 8th place right now is the Oni JX with 15 points. Above on 1 point, tied for 6th place are Chucky and Marvello. Tied on 18 points are YL and Bidwo. Then moving up slightly, we have Tunso Cool on 6969 and YEUS So Many on 9, with a nice little 4-point lead there. So quite a good little buffer between them and the rest of the lobby. But Christopher, speaking of these 8 players, obviously looking at the leaderboard to our side, we saw a bit of how these players sort of interacted with each other, how they interacted with the patch, how they interacted with the way that the meta has developed so far. I just wanted to ask you, were there any players you see as front runners, obviously ignoring the point totals, just from the way people played, the way they were able to maneuver themselves in this meta? Is there anyone that stands out to you as having done quite well last week, or people you want us to look out for, people you think maybe underperformed a bit?
Yeah, no, definitely. Almost all of these players, I think, had their moments within last week's games. Many of them, well, almost all of them, had multiple top 4s to get to this position. YU So Many up on that 24 points, really did a fantastic job all the way through day 1. But even down on 16 points, Marvello, definitely very fierce. Looks like he had got a little bit of an unfortunate day 1 with some of his games. It just didn't go his way on a few things. And yeah, even YLCO, I believe, took it first in one of our games. So definitely a lot of people with a lot to play for here.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously we are still playing on patch 14.4, so no changes in that regard. From last week, it means we're not going to be getting things that we've seen, like the wide buffs to Big Shot, Edgelord, EDM, KDA, Mosher, all these traits, and all the champions as well that have seen buffs. Aside from that, the Ezreal nerfs, but we're not going to talk about that. So the patch is still sitting the same way that it was last week. Do you think the players are going to be playing very similarly? Do you think there might be any shift in the way that people approach these games just based on how their performances went? Obviously, if you're in first place, you might just look to play a bit more safe, play for those top 4s. If you're lower, you might play a bit more risky, etc. How do you think they're going to be approaching these games?
Well, I think the meta really is sort of solved for this this patch, at least. Even though the patch was only out for 2 weeks, it was more or less the same as what it was on 14.3, with just some minor tweaks. I think Senna taking the better slot over Kill, as we mentioned, and even in the interview with So Cool, he really talked a lot about how the 2-cost rerolls are so pivotal for this meta.
Absolutely, and we will be seeing how these predictions pan out, because we are ready to fly into the first game of the 3 tonight. Interesting to see, first of all, what portal gets selected and how these players fare. Game 1 of 3 today.
Symphony Radiant Item or Spatula, however no one's picked Radiant Item, and it will be Prismatic Symphony, so we will be seeing some rather crazy boards, I'd suspect, with Prismatic Augments really making a massive impact on how the game will be played.
Absolutely, and interesting to see that get picked. Obviously, quite fun to see it get picked. You like to see things which shake up the game a lot, but obviously we know that a lot of players in games like these prefer to reduce the amount of risk and reduce the amount of sort of intangible factors which impact on them. So nice to see a sort of collective agreement to have a little bit of fun here from these players.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think there is definitely a little bit of strategy behind it, especially if you are in one of those lower placements, you do maybe want to shake it up a little bit, you know, throw people off their game, and that can be a really good way of doing it.
Absolutely. So we get into these earlier stages of the game here, players just bubbling around, getting these first 1 costs to the lobbies. Nice little disco start here, possibly to just get a cheeky little scaling comp going. Have that Dazzler on the bench as well, and the Bard, who could maybe scale into something in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely looks like he's angling Disco from this spot. However, with those item drops, that is a potential even Shroud on bench, so maybe not. Although he still does have a 3rd item component to get a look at. But with that Nami on bench, this is going to be some board opening. You know, this is exactly the kind of start you want if you have Disco. You really want to be coming into Disco with a win streaking position, so you can push levels to try and get those really capped out boards. And, you know, this is, you know, if we're looking at, you know, where people are on 2-1, it's very hard for me to imagine that someone's going to have a much better spot than So Many, who is already in first place.
Absolutely, and this is somebody that we saw get off to strong starts like this so often last week, whether it's just their understanding of play, whether it's just a little bit of luck, as well as we see these first prismatic augments come into play. March of Progress talent search and Twin Terror, the options, rolling that Twin Terror almost immediately. What would you be hoping to find here? If you are, why not?
Yeah, certainly none of those first 3 are really indicative of a Disco composition. He has kept March of Progress, which means he is thinking about it, just re-rolled it there now. However, whenever you're looking at Disco, you definitely want to be leveling up. However, instead, looks like he has chosen to go for the Radiant Relics to get that instant power. So the Caretaker's Chosen would have also given him a Radiant Down, but it would have had to be level 7 before he got it. So sacrificing a little bit of that overall strength to get that early game power to try and secure what I assume he'll be playing for is a 5-win streak. Finding the Radiant TG is also very nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Just getting those 2 Radiant items on one of those frontline champs so early makes essentially an unkillable little tank there. I mean, the Gragas, a very nice early game unit as well, just with that ultimate able to heal up through so much of the damage he takes. I mean, already you can see taken down to pretty much absolutely no damage being taken. The Edge of Night and Morello's not necessarily the greatest combo, but double Radiant items on any champion at this stage of the game just so strong. Will deliver that win with that Nami coming through as well.
Absolutely. Healing from Gragas as well. You know, Gragas naturally heals so much, but especially with Radiant Edge of Night on him, Radiant Edge of Night has changed from what it was last set, where it would almost give you 2 Edge of Nights. Now, instead, once you hit that 60% threshold, it will just return you up to full health. So, I mean, you saw there, Gragas went to about 50 health, then went back up, and it was just really hard to watch.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, there are definitely going to be some of these stronger boards just across the 8 players. With this triple prismatic early game, you're going to start to see things that you don't see necessarily happen in regular games. We have this, you know, 2-star Gnar with the Radiant Sterak's on top of him as well, that headliner and in the backline. You're going to see a lot stronger comps, so it's not necessarily a guarantee that will be enough to carry you through these games, but the double Radiant definitely feels incredibly good to have for a player who is already in first place in the leaderboard.
Absolutely, and Radiant Sterak's, you know, normally this would be indicative of potentially a Zed. Sometimes you could play Gnar reroll, although that's quite rare, and you almost always need Gnar headliner, which with Gnar having 3 traits is no guarantee, even if you do hit one of his other traits because of how the headliner mechanic works. But with Pandora's on bench, he still can reroll it, so definitely his options are very open. Playing just a very strong board, having that Gnar 2 with Radiant Sterak's early on is going to be very difficult for many boards to deal with.
Yeah, and I think obviously the flexibility of the Sterak's does feel quite nice as well, just the ability to roll into any sort of AD-centric frontline with the Moshers or the Bruisers or Executioners like Akali, etc. Just champions that can use the items. He's mentioned the Crowd Divers and Zed as well, just any champs which can sort of maneuver that to their strength. So we look at YL, currently bottom of the leaderboards, has that Infinity Force on the Olaf in the front line. Quite a weak board, but I think is happy to sit on this for right now, just tank quite a few losses and hopefully move her to something better. The Econ not doing too badly, sitting at 20 gold before first carousel as well.
Yeah, it's sort of very telling, selling his entire bench and keeping kill almost always whenever you have a bow already down. That will probably mean he's trying to angle this kill reroll. On the other side here, we do have AD items slammed with that kill reroll. That still can mean that you might be thinking about kill reroll, where you transfer those items over to something like Viego later on. or even a Mordekaiser temporarily just to hold your item.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things to focus on as well, we've mentioned of course the top 8 placements and how everyone performed last week. This first game can be so instrumental because this is where we're going to start seeing people either close the gap massively or start to really spread themselves away from the rest of the pack. So YL, for example, currently in the middle of the pack in about 4th place, doesn't want to lose too many points because then we'll start to see them slip away from what could be the top finish in this tournament.
Yeah, YL's ends up taking a glove. Now, he is down very low on health already. Is that 76 HP? I wonder if he took potentially risky moves to give himself an early economy start. It's very rare that you see 76 health at this point, so I'd be surprised if he didn't. Although, sorry, no.
No, I think they took Infinity
He can't have it
Force.
because we're not on silver augments.
Yeah.
It's very strange. Yeah, being 76 health at this point is very rare.
And of course, it is one game of 3, so not completely game ending, but with the way that the point system works, obviously with only 2 games coming up after this, that means you can get a maximum of 18 points from the last 2 games, so you really want to keep yourself as close to the top as possible to make sure you're in with a chance. Of course, why US so many top of this lobby, top of the leaderboards as well, so we'll be feeling very good about their chances. So far, still on 100 HP, only Beto is in that category as well, as we see On and Beto go up against each other right here.
Yeah, finding this early Zed paired with a Ginsu Slam, potentially Heartsteel. You see the Heartsteel units being held on bench, which is also very telling. If you're ever unsure about what someone is potentially playing, you always look at their bench, because that tells you what they're thinking about for the future. But Ginsu's probably going to try and slam that onto a Lucian, temporarily held by an NF, I would guess. But that board is very risky, especially whenever you're not playing from a win streaking position, because a lot of the time you do just get killed off in like 6th or 7th, while those reroll boards just are too powerful unless you can hit all of your 2-star forecasts.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be interesting to see now heading into this final PvP round before we get to Krugs, if Beto and YU come up against each other, or if they're both able to hold on to 5-game win streaks. Could be absolutely huge for them. Moving forward, just to keep onto that economy, we'll obviously get the extra round of the Krugs as well and be spiraling towards the first win. But so far the lobby, not too split apart. I mean, obviously we have the 2 front runners and YL is quite an outlier, but apart from that, most people seem quite healthy, seem to be in okay positions. Nothing too crazy going on with streaking on the other end.
Yeah, and I wonder if YL is full opening in this situation. You know, being so low on health, you know, that would definitely be a explanation as to how this has happened, and potentially trying to play for one of these reroll comps in the next stage. Perhaps he has very good direction, which could be a good reason as to why he's doing this. But yeah, 60 health is never where you want to be, even from a losing streak, loss streaking position.
Arvello just about claiming victory here with that Jinx, who was stacking up that minigun for so long. So heading into this Krug round, Beedro will be taken down off their first loss. YU West, the only player remaining with 100 HP, and as we mentioned before, currently on the top of the leaderboards with 24 points. So if they are able to get off to a strong start today, they will start to barrel towards first place in the overall competition. YL now we see just hitting level 5, so definitely not gonna spend all their economy on just going for some crazy roll down here, but could be looking for one of those 2-cost reroll compositions possibly.
Yeah, the only JX here is actually in quite a nice position, having that Infinity Edge / even a Shroud slammed, getting dropped another sword there as well with a tier. You know, very nice Heartsteel spot whenever you have Spoils of War, which is really an econ augment whenever you think about it. Just very solid spot, a fairly easy spot to play from. You know, maybe not the best board in the lobby, but definitely something that can win a few rounds. Definitely wishes he had potentially a little bit more damage, getting Big Shot in there, or getting a 2-star Corki.
And obviously having that Crown Guard on the Olaf as well, just keeping him alive for so much longer, making use of the lifesteal for so much longer, just that little spiral which makes that Corki able to get off so many more casts of his ultimate, as well as the Ken and the Garen and the Lilia. Just a nice little strong front line. It would be nice if the Corki could have a bit more power in him, just to be doing more on the damage side, but a nice little comp to keep him healthy and moving forward into these later stages of the game. YL we've seen taken all the way down to 60 HP. On the other hand, coming up here with the double Infinity Force on the Senna, still not quite doing enough to be able to take a win off of anyone. It's starting to create a little bit of shape in their comp. We can see them with those 2-cost rapid fire champions, maybe starting to find a little bit more shape in what they want to go for.
Yeah, and sort of looking at YLCO's spot, it's really unclear what he's potentially going for here. Not having a super fan frontline that you would expect for a 2-cost reroller, items looking maybe towards something more like a melee comp, so potentially Riven, Yone, or even just trying to go for Heartsteel, but on such low health is going to be very difficult to get to.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll admit to you, when I look at these augments, I am an absolute fiend for Pandora's. Every time I see Pandora's 3, I just pick it up without even thinking about anything else, because A, I love having that Radiant item, and A, I love guaranteeing that I get best in slot on all my champs every game, so it just feels so nice.
Yeah.
But obviously sacrificing a bit of power in other places. I think the Jewel Gauntlet 3 here does feel so nice with that Dazzler comp. Maybe means you don't necessarily have to force things like the Jeweled Gauntlet on your champions, things like the Infinity Edge, and can focus more on building utility items, attack speed, mana regeneration, etc. But also if you do get the crit items, just amplifies them so much more and pretty much guarantees that you're critting on every cast. So just such a nice augment to have in a comp which is so heavily reliant on these spellcasters.
Yeah, no, and this is a really scary position for the rest of the lobby. You know, having Radiant Relics plus Jeweled Lotus, and I mean, this win streaking board is just phenomenal. You know, having Shojin slammed, great, well, I mean, just great items in general, you know, not committed down to anything yet. Also has the glove open for potentially, as you said, that JG, which gives you extra critical strike damage in addition to the almost 100% crit strike chance. Will be really nice to get on Twisted Fate, and this is where Disco thrives, having all of this gold, being able to hit your board easily, having the health of the buffer to go level 10. You know, I couldn't really ask for a much better spot if I were by you so many, especially, again, on 25 points, 4 points clear of his next rival.
Yeah, and you mentioned the health as well. Obviously, sitting at 100 HP on 3-3 with a comp that scales as well as this does just feel so nice. In a game where you're getting triple prismatic as well, if you can get one final just sort of game changer of an augment to make that team as perfect as possible, hit level 10, get all these champions in, you have a TF and a Ziggs that are pumping out ridiculous damage, ridiculous shred. It just feels like there's not much which can go into that unless people start to hit those crazier compositions, whether we start seeing something like the KDA 10s and etc., which we haven't really seen any spats come down yet in this lobby.
Oh, and this is definitely not where you'd like to be from Chucky, you know, hitting that Gnar 2 with the Radiant items so early on and being 75 health. I mean, this lobby is very high tempo. I mean, it does happen whenever you have these prismatic augments in play. However, this is even higher tempo than what you normally see from a spot like this.
Absolutely, we see the Gnar just cleaving through that backline there. YUS still sitting pretty on 100 HP as we head into the second carousel of the game. It'll be interesting to see what these players start to contest. YL was able to buffer their HP a little bit, so down to 45, still not in a great spot, but not on that same loss streak they were on before, evening out the scores a little bit on that bottom half of the leaderboard. And really the difference between top and bottom is the main issue. Between player by player, there's not that much of a gap other than YLC are just sitting quite a rough spot still in 8th.
Yeah, and one really interesting thing to note there is Marvello actually raised the stakes on his Heartsteel cash out.
Yeah.
You know, combined with the fact that he has final reserves in play, he could be going for a level 9, level 10 board. So he's going to try and go down to that 1 HP, get a massive Heartsteel cash out, and try and win the game from that spot, which could very easily work for him. You know, being in 7th place, these are the kinds of plays that he has to go for. And looking at his board, he's in a really good spot to do so.
Absolutely, and we have, you know, a couple of people building the Heartsteel as well, just to try and see themselves through with a little bit of extra rewards with the economy, with the Ezreal, which has just been hit by on6969 items currently being held by the Karthus still. I wonder, it'll be interesting to see if they sit with this pentakill board and try and shuffle these items around a bit, or if they actually do want to maneuver into more of a big shot. They do have quite nice items for Ezreal so far. I mean, if they can turn that into an Infinity Edge off the bench as well. No red buff, but still not a terrible build. We'll be interesting to see if they are just happy to keep this pentakill on the board, however.
Yeah, no, picking up the Zed as well, and having all these Heartsteel units, whenever you look at the bench there, you see the holding a Yone, holding a Felios, not holding any of the pentakill units, really does indicate that he is looking towards Heartsteel. However, with so many people in the lobby playing Heartsteel, you know, it is going to be one of these situations where most of the time, whenever you have all of these people playing Heartsteel, you know, they're going 7th, 8th, 1st, so one of these players gets massive advantage over the others.
Absolutely. We're seeing early Ahri fly into this little shop here, but won't be paying any mind to that as we have this kill, which is starting to get a little bit stronger. Obviously, that frontline headliner Vi, a little bit of a nice placeholder here for Beedwo, who was doing quite well on HP earlier. Has slipped a little bit here to within 1 loss of the players in 3rd and 4th, but the gap between the top 4 and the bottom 4 is where things are really starting to get a little bit crazy. Obviously 17 HP difference between Chucky and the Oni JX. If that gap doesn't get closed soon, we may start to see some people run away with this game.
Yeah, no, and Beedwo here actually has quite a nice kill spot. You know, normally one of the downsides of kill is you actually have to play Superfan. You know, we always say that, you know, they want to play Superfan, but the reason they want to play Superfan is so they get the Ginsus on kill. You know, kill having double Ginsus with the Gunblade is really important. However, having those 1 costs in your front line is not ideal, so it allows you to play some of these better units, which gets you a stronger front line, which in turn gives you more time for the double Ginsus to scale. So could potentially see that coming out from Tansuko.
Yeah, heading into the Wolf round here, just to sort of recap on how the game has been going so far, YL has managed to stabilize a little bit here, winning a few rounds in a row, no longer in 8th place, only 3 HP off the person above them as well. So those bottom spaces kind of a little bit close to each other, a little bit more competitive now on the bottom side. Obviously, we see a 2-star set coming in there, so has just boasted the comp around in general. Marvello, on the other hand, dropped massively in the last few rounds. And we see YUS so many, the lobby leader, still sitting strong at 100 HP, still hoping to scale massively into that disco comp, I assume. As we see 2 Threshes just fly onto the bench of Tansuko. I think those might... ooh, and a big shot. Ezreal on the same role. I mean, hitting quite a few champs that work together in the same composition here. This could be a nice, quick way to slide into this composition. Lucian picked up as well. How do you think they're going to maneuver this into their overall team comp?
Yeah, this is absolutely massive from Tansuko, finding not only the Ezreal headliner, you know, a Poppy, a Thresh, having that target dummy as well. Poppy, Thresh, Zac, Ezreal headliner, and a Lucian on 2-1 whenever you have Infinity Edge and Red Buff slammed. Whenever the lobby is, I believe it's 4-way contested Heartsteel. So hitting now, you know, recognizing that he probably has to roll now if he's going to have any chance of hitting with how contested Heartsteel is. However, really lucky out there, although he did play for it, so well done by him.
Absolutely, yeah, and the Lucian on the board now is also that 3 Jazz, not quite hitting the 4 big shot yet, doesn't have Heartsteel on the board either, but has such a strong front line with those Thresh, Zac, and Gragas that were picked up. The big shot Ezreal just feels so nice to have as well, with 2 of the best items available for that champion. No mana regeneration or mana sort of mitigation with that blue buff just yet, but if they were able to get a 3rd item on there, this Ezreal could cause massive problems in the lobby as well.
Going into the 3rd set of augments, binary airdrop is one you always love to see, especially whenever you have Heartsteel. It gives you so much more value. You know, binary airdrop almost gives you, it essentially means all of your components are worth an extra half a component whenever you think about it, because now you only need 4 components to get a full set of items. So whenever you combine that with something like Heartsteel and even Spoils of War, which give you extra components, it's so much value for your board.
Yeah, and obviously those items will start coming in, making that board so much stronger. A little bit of a sort of amalgamation of a lot of different compositions here, just trying to strengthen the board as much as possible, I think, to stabilize a little bit, because the Oni JX dropped quite a bit of HP over the last few rounds. Will be interesting to see how this sort of morphs as we have that weird little backline of the Jazz Dazzler with some Heartsteel champions. Obviously the Zed currently and Poppy strongest units, who will get those binary airdrop items as well to make 2 fully kitted out carries.
Why use so many actually electing to not roll, electing to save up his gold and trying to go level 9? I assume he'll attempt to roll on 4-5 for a little bit of stability, but that just means that whenever he rolls down for his units, other people will have taken 4-cost units out of the pool, so is sacrificing his win streak for better odds on 4-5. Whenever you combine that with the fact that even whenever he's rolling, he's going to have maybe 70-ish gold, so if he hits early on, he can actually still stay on that 50 interest and potentially just go 9 from there and win out.
Absolutely, and we see the Radiant Relic did get picked up here by Marvello, who is still bottom of the leaderboard, but does have that Radiant Stridebreaker available now on that headliner Zed. Only 3 EDM, so not really casting as much as they'd maybe like to. Only 2 Crowd Diver as well, so the bonus damage not really ideal right now. The front line not the strongest either, so a lot of areas I think just need to be strengthened here for Marvello to start contesting in this lobby, but that Zed definitely is a strong one.
Yeah, I mean, hitting the Zed is nice, but the rest of the board is just extremely weak. There's really no other strong strong points apart from that Zed. And you know, with how many people have already hit Z2s in this lobby, you know, looking at the board on the other side, there's a 2-star Zed with Radiant Item and the 2-star Ezreal Headliner. You know, it's really just not enough.
Yeah, and looking at the overall picture of the lobby and how this affects the way things stand right now, Marvelo is in 7th place heading into this game, sitting on about 16 points. So finishing in a bottom position here would all but rule out their chances of winning the actual competition. So obviously, anything that could change the game for them, any big maneuver they could make, needs to be made soon, or else they'll be slipping away from that title position.
Well, yeah, and as we noted before, Marvelo does have final reserves, so is playing, you know, intentionally to go to 1 HP. However, being 0 gold on 18 health really isn't where you want to be, even with that augment. However, you know, if we can stick with him and see how his roll down goes, he could be the person that steals this lobby out of nowhere.
Absolutely, and obviously does still have a few losses left in them as we slide over to on 6969 here with the nice little headliner stack with that Heartsteel available on them as well, the Thieves Gloves on the Poppy. Just a lot of nice sort of strong-ish units around the board. Not in the best spot here either, and that Infinity Force on the Zed kind of feels like a placebo carry, right? Like it's not really going to be doing much with only the 2 Crowd Divers and 2 EDM, but the makings of something good possible.
Yeah, no, really interesting on the side there. Only JX just hit a 2-star Lucian on it.
Yeah.
Also Marvelo there. Really interesting thing to note with him is he's likely on 2 losses before he goes down to 1 HP. And at this point, assuming he loses the next 2 rounds, he will cash out on neutral rounds, which gives him even more time to roll for his board and make sure he stabilizes it properly. You know, normally you don't have a lot of time whenever you do that, so really well played by him to get his losses to that point.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, sitting on 4 HP now, so we'll be able to just tank one more loss. They feel like it before hitting that final reserves and then flying into the Raptors round. So good to mention that he will just have a lot of time to start thinking about how to maneuver this board. Does hit the cash out now, leveling up quite a few champions, seeing that 2-star set, the 2-star Felios. Caitlyn still sitting on a 1-star though, the Ziggs on the bar not doing too much, providing a little bit of extra shred, a little bit of extra damage, and sitting on a red buff on the bench as well. So if they were able to throw in maybe an Ezreal and maybe maneuver one of the other champions out of the board, because we do have that big shot buff available now that MF is played. We just can see how he finds space for these carries.
Hitting that Lucian there is really nice. It will make a massive difference being able to drop Caitlyn, get in 3rd Jazz as well. He will pop his final reserves in a second here as well. You know, really, I think this was intentional from him. He recognized that his board was never going to be strong enough to win any of these rounds, so instead just electing to clear up his board a little bit and prepare for this final reserves, which we now just gone off of. So it'll be really interesting to see what his board ends up looking like. However, this 8-bit emblem with Lucian 2 is something really scary for this lobby. You know, we said that these Heartsteel players were going to contest each other quite a lot, and we have seen them, you know, picking up each other's units. However, they all seem to have managed to find something that just gives them damage and frontline, even though it's through different sources. We see the Poppy and the Jhin here. A lot of people, it's the Ezreal or it's the Zed. You know, so they've done a really nice job of playing around each other.
Absolutely, and we see some nice little backline items flying in here, possibility of making a blue buff for Static Shiv, etc. Marvelo, obviously, we get to see the aftermath of what happened with that roll down with the Raptors round as well. Get to choose a little bit of a component here with the Anvil, just bolster up that Lucian. Did end up going for a headliner Caitlyn, so opting not to drop them from the comp, instead getting rid of the Aphelios and keeping the rapid fire off that Caitlyn, who now has 3 items with the Runins, with the Radiant Guardbreaker and the Giant Slayer as well. Lucian on pretty okay items, but not quite close enough to 2-starring. And just holding on to some 5 claws on the bench to try and hit that Lucian and that Ziggs, I assume.
Yeah, and does want to actually fight the 2-star Lucian, so will it be enough for this fight? This is going to be really close for Marvelo, actually. He really wants just a little bit more time. He just wants a few more things, but having that Radiant Guardbreaker, you know, being able to snipe past this Poppy, it might be enough. It's coming down to it, really. This Poppy's taking forever, and yeah, the Caitlyn snipe does manage to take out the Lucian. But however, if that Lucian had been in the opposite corner, potentially could have taken out the Caitlyn, that might have cost Marvelo the game.
That's the problem with the way that Marvelo's board is lined up now, is that every round is basically their last round, and they have to just keep playing for as much as they can. Finding this 2-star Kiana here, obviously not something they really want to play, but just desperately hoping to find that 2-star Lucian, which will buff their board so much with 3 items he already has on him. We find the Tunso Cool here, who is also 1 defeat away from being sent out of this lobby. Obviously, that headliner Ezreal we saw come in quite a while ago, just not quite managing to really capitalize on that front line, with perhaps throwing in an Alawi as well, maybe getting more tank items. The binary airdrop does help, and we'll see how it fares against the Beetle, who has slipped into first place.
Yeah, no, definitely the only thing he is really looking for at the moment is an Alawi, most likely over that Poppy. However, having, as you said, being in this position with binary airdrop is very nice. However, you do have to recognize he did take level up, so getting to level 9 was expected for him, and it's just sadly not enough. I was about to say his board does lack the power. You know, whenever you look on the other side, those are 3 combat augments he's up against, and he only has 1. I mean, the dummy is technically the combat augment, I suppose, so 2 versus 3, but whenever it's with prismatic augment, it really does make a massive difference.
Yeah, we say goodbye to our first member of the lobby, Tunso Cool, being taken down by that Requiem, which cleared up pretty much most of their board. Marvello and On 6ix9ine sitting on 1 HP on both of them, both 1 loss away from defeat. Hitting level 10 here though on 6ix9ine, and rolling down as much as they can just to see what they can accomplish. Do have that headliner Lucian, 2-star Ziggs, 2-star Ezreal with full build, 2-star Poppy with full build, hitting a Yone level up here, and would just be interesting to see if this is enough to see them through the next round and drag themselves into a top 4 spot against the Disco Ari comp of YU Assuming.
Yeah, it does look like On 6ix9ine is going to be the Logleys boogeyman at the minute. You know, going level 10, hitting all of these 2-star legendaries, he's just going to set himself a little bit further ahead than the rest of the lobby. However, looking over at the board on the other side there, that looks like two Blitzcranks, 2 Twisted Fates, looking to play for a 3-star 4 cost, recognizing how many people there are in this lobby. He has likely secured a top 4 already. However, being able to beat some of these boards is going to require hitting that 3-star 4 cost, and so understanding what his win condition is there.
Yeah, we see immediately off this carousel all the emblems being taken away, bar the Sentinel of course, but the Hyper Pop, so nice to just add a little bit of support into your comps. The true damage, if you can get to that next stage of true damage, just makes all your champions so much stronger. The big shot as well, if you can get to 4 or 6, makes that backline feel so much stronger as well. Some nice tank items, the Warmogs on the Kane there being picked up as well. This Hyper Pop does also tick another Jazz trait, so that means that they'll be getting a little bit more from the Jazz buff overall.
Yeah. You know, looking at this board, it has sort of... It looks like in normal circumstances it would have stabilized. However, given how strong the rest of the lobby is, obviously On 6ix9ine and Marvello having popped their final reserves, probably just not enough. And it's kind of sad to say, but as we said before, you know, all these Heartsteel players, Tunso Cool already out, 2 Heartsteel players on 1 HP, and Chucky on 1 life as well. You know, they can't all win the lobby, unfortunately.
Yeah, and YLCO here with a chance to send Chucky packing to that true damage instead, just doing as much as it can with the Radiant Strikes as well. Karthus will cast 1 final Requiem, take them all down to as low as possible. Zac casting as much as he can, trying to get the heals off to outlast this set, but that Redemption plus Gargoyle healing might be enough with 1 more cast of the W to just break through that Zac. And it is Chucky. Unlucky there, just getting taken down to exactly -1 HP. Will outlast the Oni JX, so we'll take 6th place at least. Outliving 2 other players in the lobby. We see Marvello here 2-starring a Ziggs finally, 2-starring the Lucian as well off camera, 2-starring that Kiana and throwing it in. So this team has changed shape rapidly over the last few rounds and is 1 HP away from making it into the top 4 and securing that extra point.
Yeah, Marvello here has done a phenomenal job from where he was. You know, only having these 1-star legendaries, has now managed to 2-star all of them, combined with this Radiant item. You know, really, whenever you look at the 2 boards now from both players, it is going to be very difficult to say who will win. They do manage to dodge each other for another round. However, you know, it really is anyone's game at this point.
And I think Marvello's comp should be strong enough here to just outlast that first. Having said that, Karthus ult landing perfectly onto the Lucian and the Caitlyn. If Lucian is able to just get 1 more cast off before the Requiem comes down, unable to, but still will be enough to get rid of Beetle's entire composition. Not a surprise in the end, but it looked a little bit shaky there when Karthus almost one-shot the Lucian and Caitlyn with 1 cast.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been so long since I've seen a Karthus comp. I've actually forgotten that Karthus is a lot of the time the counter to some of these boards. You know, having that backline access to just ignore the front line and just get in there, take away the damage, and from there just win the fight. When, you know, I mean, if you can't do any damage, you can't kill anything, and then you can't win the fight.
We see On here swapping out a 2-star Poppy for a 2-star Jhin, which does trigger that Big Shot 4, as well as just having a 2-star Jin, which feels fantastic on the board as well. So, Herald Ground, we'll see what items these players get, we'll see what they're able to do with any excess gold that they have. Obviously Marvello and On both powering through and have put themselves in a position where they could both overtake YEU, who had such a fantastic start to the game.
Yeah, on 6-9 has also done a phenomenal job capping out his board. Does find another Ginsu's Rageblade. It's hard to imagine that he will pass that up on Illusion. He could go for red buff, I suppose. Does not have a source of burn, and getting that extra attack speed, he does opt for it. You know, getting that extra base attack speed means that the Rageblade he already has will gain stacks faster, so tends to get a little bit more value earlier on into the fight, which is what you do want whenever you're up against something like Karthus, so really understanding his matchups.
And On, it looks like going up against the ghost of an opponent here, so we'll hopefully be able to just clear this one out as a free win. Marvello, on the other hand, could still be in danger if up against YEU, and we could be seeing at least one person go out at this stage of the lobby, which would leave us with our final 4. You see On dealing with the opponent in front of him, Marvello as well. However, YEUS was not able to win that round, dropping to minus 9 HP, and the player who dominated the lobby for so long doesn't even make the top 4, wasn't able to capitalize on that early game pressure that they were able to establish, and now crashing out in 5th place. Does feel a bit unlucky, you know, you've got 2 players on 1 HP and 1 player on 3 HP, just kind of sliding ahead of you, but they were able to do so well with those loss streaks that they amassed and with those extra prismatics.
It does look like Marvello and On 6-9 are finally going to meet. You know, managing to dodge each other for so many rounds has essentially allowed them both to manage to get a top 4, which is not something that normally happens with Heartsteel. However, just the pairings going their way. Looking at the board here of YLCO, not managing to find the Akali 3, however, still does have a phenomenal board. Up against the side of Beedwo here, who has just managed to play really solid early games, saves so much HP, especially through the mid game as well. We saw White so many bleed out quite a lot of health through that mid game, and yeah, has managed to get himself into a top 4 spot while the Heartsteel players all kill each other, and it does look like Marvello does end up falling to the level 10.
Yeah, and YLCO, I mean, that 2-star Kane is doing so much there, cleaving through the cars, cleaving through the rest of the backline. Marvello doesn't manage to outlast his 1 HP brother on 6-9-6-9, and YL was actually able to heal up a tiny bit as well. Won't make much of a difference because 7 HP, 5 HP, 4 HP doesn't really change that if you lose one game you're out of the game, but Beedwo will have to make some drastic changes here if I think they're to outlast the other 2 players in the lobby and make it past a top 3 finish.
Well, managing to move the items over to that 2-star Kali will make a massive impact. You know, whenever you look at the items, you know, Karthus is a scaling champ now since his rework. You know, the longer the fight goes, the more AP he gets, which is the more damage he does. So, wonder if that 2-star Alawi could be enough. However, it looks like On 6-9 is just melting through the board and takes Beedwo down really low. That's a very big loss. Yeah,
and with that round, YL obviously playing against the Ghost does mean that all 3 players are able to keep themselves alive going to this carousel. YL will, of course, get last pick because of that, but next round could be the last round, given the way that these players will get put against each other, depending on who's against the Ghost, depending on who goes face to face.
Yeah, if Beedwo and On 6-9 do end up playing each other's real, I wonder if YLCO will be able to withstand a Ghost of these Heartsteel boards, you know, so strong. Or, well, this Heartsteel board could be the death of him, so definitely could be the last round. On 6-9, just trying to roll for something. I assume he's just rolling for MF at this point, although having 2 champion duplicators on bench doesn't even need to hit it.
Yeah, I think he was just trying to hit it naturally, but doesn't really have much to do to make this board any stronger. Sitting on just that little quick glove on the bench, which doesn't add much to the composition. But 169, obviously, the current hot streak winner of the lobby with that Thresh Alawi, quite a standard sort of late game comp, one that isn't too strong towards with the big shot Lucian as well, bonus AD. But will they have enough to deal with this Heartsteel board with that 2-star Kane who is just grinding and grinding through that background?
YLCO does get slightly unfortunate pairings here and manages to fight both players' reels in a row. If he had managed to fight Ghost, he might have been able to sneak into a top 2 position, however, not going his way. And we do have Beedwo and On 6-9 fighting it out for the top 2. However, it is hard to imagine this Heartsteel board losing with so many itemized 2-star 5 costs.
Yeah. Well, let's have a little bit of faith, Chris. Okay, anything can happen. this could be an absolute upset of a round. You know, even if you have 1% chance of winning, that's still not zero. Bidwo, sitting on 1 HP, was able to force himself into a great position here as we are 5 seconds away from the final match of round 1. Both players on 1 HP, both players have been able to put together some fantastically powerful boards with this triple prismatic, and we'll see how they fare in the combat here. The Karthus on the back line with that headline with a lot of mana generation will try to cast as much as possible to cleave through the frontline champions. The Heartsteel board as well, showing that it wasn't strong enough to deal with this, but will the big shot one be better? Yeah, I tried to find ways that Karthus was gonna deal with what was in front of it, but the fact is this was sort of a foregone conclusion as the execution comes out. Bidwo put up a very good fight, ends up coming second place, will have nothing to complain about. Fantastic job to On for winning that lobby, and we'll see how that affects the overall brackets when we come back. But Chris, any thoughts coming out of that game? Anything you sort of wanted to comment on meta-wise? Obviously the way that the team comps were built up, or the sort of approach people had to gameplay in general?
No, I think a lot of the lobby really played the hand they were dealt, and the lobby kind of shook out how they were dealt. You know, Marvello played for the top finish, didn't manage to get it. You know, went for the final reserves play. Unfortunately, also there was another player in the lobby with final reserves, which just prevented him from, you know, winning out the lobby. Because I mean, in a lot of instances, whenever you have that final reserves and you manage to hit your board, it does mean that you win the lobby. However, that is the risk you take whenever you do play those Heartsteel lines. Absolutely.
I think possibly the most disappointing thing from my POV was the way that YE West wasn't really able to capitalize on the early game success that he had. You know, being, as we said, top of the lobby, being on 24 points before this game started, had a fantastic chance to just push through, turn that into something greater. Sitting at 5th place won't be too much of a hit. We'll still be sitting around the top, but could have really made some big impacts there. That being said, thank you all for joining us for that first game. We will head over to a quick little short break, and when we come back, we will have all the action of the second game of the evening waiting for you as these players get one step closer to claiming that grand prize. We are back.
I don't wanna fall for you, oh no. But you make it so hard. Watching you dance all night, baby, is making me fall hard. Trying to take a deep breath, but I just can't control my lungs. Ooh. Trying to hide my cold sweat, but I just keep on talking in tongues. It's a funny situation that I got myself in.
like it. I think I like it. Got nothing to lose. 'Cause I think I like it. Tell me if you like me too. How can you move the way you do? It's making me crazy. Yeah. You're moving just like you own the room. Make it look easy. I wanna take you away to somewhere we can be by ourselves. I see you looking my way, so maybe it's not all in my head. It's a funny situation that I got myself into. I can't help my own frustration. 'Cause I think, yeah, I think I like it. I think I like it. Got nothing to lose. 'Cause I think I like it. Tell me if you like me too.
No, they're not. Super with the threat and OnlyFans putting on this round of everyone is Teamfight snakes, and this snake will end it here for double kill points for Kyrie on the backside of his fight. Cancels fast forward.
Hello again everyone and welcome back to the University Esports UK and Republic of Ireland Spring 2024 Teamfight Tactics season. We are back bringing you coverage of the Grand Finals show match tonight. Once again I'm Dryseld XXL, joined by the lovely Christopher, and we've just come out of game 1 of 3 of the night. Some surprises, some throws perhaps, some fantastic performances from others. Just want to get your thoughts before we head into game 2, Chris, of how you thought that game 1 went down and what you expect to see coming up in game 2.
Well, definitely looking towards the top of the table, On69 had a phenomenal performance there, taking the lobby, claiming the full 9 points and claiming first place, managing to overtake Many, who had a 4-point gap at the start of the day. Himself got slightly unfortunate, having so many from starting off with a really nice position, having that win streaking spot, didn't manage to convert it into a top 4. Slightly unfortunate for him. There were a lot of people who were also trying to go for those very capped boards with things like final reserves or Heartsteel because they needed to, because he had such a massive gap. Game ended up giving him disco. He wanted to play for a first, which meant that he, recognizing that he wouldn't be able to beat these Heartsteel boards, went for the 3-star 4 cost and didn't manage to get it, and it did cost him a top 4.
Yeah, and obviously with these scores being added on from last round, we do have some people shuffling around in the overall leaderboards in that top 8. On69 now taking the top spot away from YE West. Still quite close though at the top, only 4 points separating first and fourth place. However, on the other side of things, 12 points away is the Oni JX, so they'd have to put together 2 fantastic games back to back if they wanted to be in with a chance of actually competing for this title. Now, looking forward, and obviously this is the last tournament we have going on before the next set comes out, so I just wanted to get your quick little thoughts, quick little predictions. Who do you think is taking this game 2 of our round 2? grand finals?
I think Marvello has been a very underrated player throughout this event. I've really liked a lot of the lines he's taken. Hasn't necessarily gone his way a lot of the time, as we saw last game. However, I think he would definitely make an interesting comeback.
Yeah, and with that, we are ready to fly into our second game of the night. So, bring you once again the coverage, myself and Chris. Hopefully, these players put together another fantastic performance, as that portal has just been selected, and we go into the first PvE round of this game. And we've heard from Broadside that the golden finale was what was in the end picked up, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but that means the final augment of the game is guaranteed to be gold. As we see.
Why use any ending up throwing Annie and an Echo? I mean, could be an Annie reroll game. Hey, I know people who have forced it from worse spots.
Yeah, I mean, those two Spellweavers coming in early, obviously something that maybe fell a little bit out of favor as the patch progressed. Spellweavers getting nerfed quite often, and just Annie in general not quite in the position she was when this set first came out, but getting those two champs quite early, immediately selling the Annie, however, so not even entertaining the thought, getting that Sentinel buff in instead. The Heartsteel Cassante quite favored just because if you can get those early Heartsteel units in, it does start to feel really nice with the cash outs.
Yeah, no, definitely. If you can find that one Heartsteel unit on before 2-1, this board suddenly becomes insane if you can manage to get the Heartsteel. Either 3 Heartsteel on 2-1 or 5 Heartsteel on 3-1. You do need a Heartsteel headliner in order to do both of those normally, unless you significantly high roll. So understanding that is interestingly, despite being in that top position, Heartsteel is one of those 1st or 8th boards. So going for that, maybe just wanting to control his own fate and not having to rely on other people playing badly.
Yeah, and does have options to rotate into with some of these stronger units here. I mean, it has the Nico and the Echo, which are quite good frontline options for a few compositions, hitting these silver augments, Pandora, Silver Veil, and Silver Spoon. So a couple of options here to maybe bolster, just get that early game strength. And obviously Silver Veil, just a nice bit of combat strength. Pandora's can help you get those perfect items you need, and Silver Spoon just could be good in hitting those early Heartsteel units, I suppose, if you really want to get a Yone and a set in as well, but it will be interesting to see just what they decide to settle for here.
Yeah, you're bang on with that Silver Spoon analysis. Getting the Heartsteel units a lot of the time is very, very important. However, it elects not to take it and goes for the Pandora's bench. Interestingly, will he slam items? A lot of the time people don't end up slamming items, or they slam. Some people greed with Pandora's, some people wait for the first viable item for whatever they're wanting to play. Taking Pandora's, normally you do it in a position where you want to commit to a line very early on. However, not having a clear direction, since he doesn't have 3 Heartsteel, doesn't really have any DPS at all in at the minute. I mean, Cassante is, not a terrible DPS, but not what you would want ideally.
Yeah, I mean, obviously early game Cassante, if he's able to cast quite a few times, can just sort of one-shot remove units off the board, but as a single point of damage, if that gets cleared out, you don't really have a board around it, and with nothing but a Sentinel frontline, or not even a Sentinel 4 frontline, but sort of sitting halfway in between, it feels like it could fall off quite quickly. It does get that first win.
Yeah, and looking over at Beedro here, does manage to have a very nice early Punk setup here. Doesn't necessarily look like he is playing Punk for sure. Could definitely still play it, however not using his Punk rerolls, keeping his options open. Some people like to use their Punk rerolls on stage 2, some people prefer to save up gold since they are rerolling for a 1 cost if they do end up going for it. Not slamming items here either, so very unclear what he could be going for, but does have a very strong board, so it'll be interesting to see whether or not he slams items, and yet recognizing that he does have a very strong board and wanting to play for that win streak.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that Jack getting cleared up pretty early, the Vi should be enough to sort of hold on here with that BT shield, with the extra Omni Vamp as well. If they can get one more cast off, would be absolutely huge. Doesn't quite manage, and it'll be interesting to see if this Hodge on the Jinx is enough to just clear out, but not quite, as the Felios will be able to get one cast off to get the stun onto the switch, but not enough to clear out both of the backline units, and Beto will continue that little win streak forward.
Yeah, nearly went very badly wrong for Beedro, but does manage to get the win in the end. And now looking over at Marvello here, did manage to get a top 4 last game, so started off the day in 7th. Not a terrible start, and still definitely in contention here. However, trailing the leader by about 8 points, I believe. So really looking for that first place, and is ending up looking like he's trying to play towards the Senna. You know, he has that rod on bench, has frontline tank items, and took the duplicator. Almost always means Senna. And whenever we look back at the stats from last patch, you know, Senna reroll was the highest average placement comp in the game with 4.3. You know, still not miles ahead of everything else, but definitely one of the best comps in the game for getting those consistent top 4 finishes, although it doesn't always win out lobbies.
Yeah, do you prefer more sort of forcing through the true damage line with Senna, or do you see yourself sitting more with the actual rapid fire? Or, I mean, obviously, putting both within the comp, but just which one is more important to hit those higher levels of like the true damage 4, the true damage 6, or the rapid fire 4 sitting in the comp?
Yeah, no, it's almost always the true damage, and it's more because true damage gives you a more balanced comp. Whenever you think about the units that include it, all the rapid fire are damage dealers, so you want to end up having, you know, a more balanced comp between damage and frontline, and so teching into that true damage not only gets you the damage same as rapid fire would, but it gets you better units.
Absolutely, and I think one thing to note this game over last is that the lobby seems a lot more balanced. I mean, 3 people sitting on 100 HP right now, the lowest only on 81, so not losses as hefty as we were seeing in the previous lobby, and most people at the bottom are quite near each other, most people at the top are quite near each other, so it could be a lot more contested heading into these top 4 finishes and into these later stages of the game.
Yeah, YLCO and Marvello contesting each other on this loss streak is very important, because they are going to, it does mean that they're both going to have to play weaker boards in order to keep this loss streak going. You know, interestingly, YLCO does choose to level to 5 here, which isn't something you do a lot of the time whenever you are win streaking. However, does have the good for something augment on the side there, so trying to maximize the number of units he has on the board, which die and in turn give him a chance of getting gold.
Yeah, just trying to maximize the actual loot that he's getting off the augment that he picked earlier. With those silvers, it is nice if you can get some value out of what can just be sort of tertiary systems in your composition, but just needs to make sure that he's not losing too much off this composition, because obviously 5 champions on the board, but pretty much all 5 are fodder that aren't going to be taking any lives with them. It does drop significantly below Marvello now, from a point of HP above to 5 below. We're going to hopefully see them stabilize a bit more, but I don't think they'll be too afraid, because last lobby, obviously YL, we saw in a much worse position than this, was sitting on about 60 HP in a similar point of the game, so definitely doing better, and definitely not completely in the dirt.
Yeah, last game that was one of the best comebacks I think we've seen all tournament. However, not something that I would like to try to repeat if I were any of these players.
Absolutely, and we see, as well as that, only one person left with the 100 HP flying into this Krug round. If they're able to hold this on for one more round, that would be quite huge on 6969, who was of course the winner of the last lobby as well, currently top of the leaderboard, but I said that last time and I jinxed that person into finishing in 5th place, so I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, just not saying too much right now and letting them play out their game before I make any hazardous claims.
Yeah, and Chucky here really keeping his options open, looking to play some kind of reroll lines in that team building augment. However, has a Senna. However, his items are more leaning towards a Seraphine. Whenever you look at that Shojin, then open belt, you know, whenever you have a Seraphine, you're looking to play Shojin, Superfan item, plus either Nashor's Tooth or Morello's. So having that open belt plus Shojin with team building probably means he would ideally like to lean towards it. However, not having any Seraphines and a Senna plus a kill on bench really means that he doesn't have clear direction just yet.
We see on just doing a little bit of fan service here, flashing that level 7 mastery emote with the Yasuo. This Krug round, we're starting to see a little bit more loot coming. We'll start to see how these comps are facing up against each other, how they are starting to take shape as well. A couple of really strong units on the bench here for on sitting on that Blitzcrank, having a couple of Sentinels just lined up. The Morello's Urgot is not one I've seen very often, but I suppose with that AoE, just able to apply it to multiple people, and just has a nice little Mosher segment with Dinar as well, which is able to keep him in a strong position in these earlier rounds, because having just this many strong units and having the 2-star cannon, having that Superfan with no headliner as well, which is quite funny, does pick up the Kale now, so we'll be able to slide in a stronger unit here.
Yeah, no, this is a Very, very strong position for on 6-9 now. You know, sold his headliner in order to try and find a better headliner. Found arguably the best one for his spot. You know, having the Morellos already slammed. Chooses not to move it over to the kill instead and just levels to throw in the Mordekaiser. However, having a kill with Ginsus with a frontline like this at 3-1 with 100 health, you know, he is probably the player to beat coming out of stage 2 and into stage 3. However, I mean, we almost always say that about the 100 here, however, especially true whenever you have a board like this.
Yeah, and with this Cassante going down now, nothing left to protect. The Felios won't be able to get another cast off either, so the Gensu stacked up Kayle and the Morelos will be able to just cleanse out that last backline member on picking up another win here. A little bit of showboating with the Yasuo feeling in a very good spot, obviously top of the lobby, top of the leaderboard, and looking to maybe fly home to another victory in this one as well. Currently 6 HP above second place, holding on to that win streak which started since round 1 as we get the second silver augment of the game.
Yeah, and the only JX is playing Heartsteel board and finds that, I was going to say Tiny Titans, what is it called? He just rolled past it. It was literally right in front of us, but gives you an extra 30 health, so a lot of the time that is what you instantly pick whenever you have Heartsteel in. However, rolling past it and trying to go for, looks like board strength, you know, not re-rolling the best friends, and does end up picking it, so valuing that augment quite highly, which is understandable whenever you are trying to angle a comp like Senna. However, in a lobby like this, that is quite risky. You know, we have a couple of people who are trying to angle reroll comps already. 2 people have picked team building, so as long as you manage to pick compositions which aren't going to be contested, it will be fine. However, making sure that doesn't happen is easier said than done.
Yeah, and I mean, I suppose weighing up the sort of perceived value of the Tiny Titans versus what they get in terms of just raw stats right now, thinking, you know, well, I could take the extra HP, it means I'm not really getting a lot of carousel, I'm also just kind of tanking heavy losses, or I can try and get a bit more board strength, make sure my losses aren't as hefty, make sure I'm building up a stronger comp for the late game in general.
Yeah, and having Unijex does have a ton of traits on the bench, you know, waiting to see, waiting for a better time to pop it. Tome of Traits does tailor depending on the traits that you currently have in, or well, whenever I say currently have in, the rounds, the traits that you played from the last round is more likely to give you those traits than the ones that you don't have in, so waiting for the right moment to pop that.
Yeah, and of course it'll be interesting to see if they use those Tome of Traits to hit more of the sort of unattainable levels, or if they'd rather just sit on getting a bit more of a supporting class in, or maybe just taking over into like a 4 of something or a 6 of something, rather than forcing for something incredible, like I've mentioned before, with things like the KDA 10, etc. I think I really want to see a KDA 10, which is why I keep bringing it up. I just want to see someone actually force for something a little bit more spectacular. You see Jinx getting cleaved through here on the back line. Yeah, a little bit of nice AoE, getting rid of all but 2 members of this board.
Yeah, no, I think we're all wanting to see KDA 10. However, you know, normally whenever you have that Tome of Traits, if you know what a lot of the emblems do, you do want to tend to go for those rarer spatulas, looking for something like Jazz, which can just allow you to play a traditional Heartsteel board, is one of the favorites at the minute. However, there are a lot of other ones that if you get them early enough are really good. Something like Crowd Diver is really nice, because if you manage to get the Crowd Diver headliner, it means that you can play 6 Crowd Diver without a Kiana, which means you don't have to get to level 9 and survive all the way through stage 4 and 5 a lot of the time. Yeah,
and also if you do end up finding that Kiana, it means that you just can free up some more extra space on your board to put something else in, maybe take over into another supporting class as well, just to bolster up your overall board strength.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chucky here, it looks like he is leaning towards this Lulu reroll. He's managed to get 5 Lulus already and has just been dropped. Or not just been dropped, but does have another champion duplicator on bench. So 3 champion duplicators, just needing 1 more Lulu, and he's got a really strong position. I mean, doesn't exactly have the ideal headliner, do want hyper pop, however it's not essential, and especially if you can hit it this early on, you know, really strong.
Absolutely. And I'm looking at one of the more interesting Urgots that I've ever seen on my screen here, with that Infinity Edge, the Even Shroud, and the blue buff there, but it's just going to be hopefully strong enough here to blow through the overall team of Chucky. Having said that, this Lulu getting off so many casts that she was able to cleave through quite a few members of YLC's overall team. Polymorphing as well, getting those AoE casts. And if if Katarina's allowed to use one more cast, it will end up just clearing out the entire board. So Chucky level behind that. Lulu pretty much just solo winning that entire lobby, getting I think 3 polymorphs off back to back to back through just casting that much with the hyper pop plus the boob buff plus the attack speed of everyone else.
Yeah, and seeing a lot of upgrades come in on the side, Chucky does manage to hit 2-star Lulu, so he does theoretically have enough champion duplicators to make a 3-star Lulu right now. However, it's whether or not he wants to try and go for a 3-star frontliner to cap out his board, or whether he wants to try and economize, try and push levels to get those 2-star legendaries. And in a lobby where they are this contested, generally speaking, you do want to push levels.
Absolutely, it's interesting. We see the true damage already being played here on the board. Just quite nice. Just gets a little bit of extra damage on the gun. As well as that, the headliner Seraphine full build. I think we'll have enough damage to deal with this Lulu just with one more cast here. That Archangel stacked up so much that the double cast, even with Lulu doing so much AoE damage, even with the Hextech Gunblade, should be enough. Having said that, I said that last time and Lulu went a little bit crazy, but this time the prophecy does hold true and Lulu does end up falling down. We fly into the Wolf round. Finally, level 7 for YU so many, who is having quite a different game to the last. Not really just kind of bulldozing win streaking through, but in a healthy spot overall. Keeping the 3 Heartsteel in just to see if they can get a little bit of extra loot. Some rapid fire in the back line. Currently all the items on Aphelios, but could transfer over if needed. And not the weakest of front lines either, just enough to get a few casts of those ultimates off.
Yeah, and interestingly, he is holding 2 kills, so recognizing that on 6ix9ine is going for that kill 3, and just trying to delay how long he gets there, being in such a strong position, you know, especially whenever YU so many is competing with on 6ix9ine, both of them on 29 and 28 points respectively. Really in the balance, this could be the game that decides, well, who wins the tournament.
Absolutely, and for somebody in On's position as well, already top of the leaderboard, currently 100 HP, in a much better position than YU was in last game. I think by this point YU had already lost their first game, whereas On holding strong, still with an incredibly strong board as well. Not many teams able to beat it. Having said that, Tun's so cool, hitting a lot of their 3-stars. Now we saw the Vi 3-star just get ticked. So that Punk board as well will start to take shape in a much more dangerous way. Double Infinity Edge on this Aphelios as well.
And it should be mentioned that on 6ix9ine, you know, being 1 point clear of the pack in this penultimate game, if he does manage to find a first place, could end up just securing the tournament from this one game.
Absolutely, yeah, because at that point you're looking at essentially only needing like a top 4, top 3 finish. Depending on how everyone else in the lobby does. YU, I believe, yeah, is still currently in 2nd place in the overall leaderboard, so if they drop points yet again after last game, that will make that gap just so much bigger, because currently it is only 1 point difference between 1st and 2nd place, but then the gap starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger the further down you go.
And a lot of upgrades coming through on the side. Marvello hitting Senna 3, on 6ix9ine hits Kill 3 and Gnar 3 in the same turn, while still 100 win streaking. Could very easily end the tournament here. This is going to be up to the rest of the lobby to see if they can manage to find a way to drag him down.
Absolutely, and this 5 Heartsteel board, probably not the main way that we're looking at that, but I mean, it could find something. Obviously another Heartsteel level on the bench. Let's go Heartsteel 10. How about that? Wouldn't that be fun to see? We're not in a great spot anyway.
Quite a few times, however, you do end up needing 3 Heartsteel emblems to get Heartsteel. It's very sad, even with the headliner. You know, the amount of times I got bidded into this about 3 times and wondered why I don't have 10 Heartsteel whenever we were at the start of the set, and then suddenly realized I need 3 emblems, not 2.
Absolutely, and the only Jack's only on 21 HP, so I mean, could even be only 2 losses away from getting completely knocked out, depending on how hard they tank. These 3-stars coming in nicely. Obviously has that Hullbreaker Infinity Edge, plus the cloak available on that 3-star Vi, the 3-star Jinx on the backline as well with the Punk headliner trait. Would be really nice for them if they were able to find a Punk emblem. Hitting that 6 is just such a magnificent buff, especially if you start getting those other 3-stars like the Twitch, like the Pantheon available as well. Those units just start to scale ridiculously with the bonus HP and damage.
Yeah, and the only JX here really in a tough spot. I mean, not having any units he really wants here. It just unfortunately looks like he didn't manage to build up enough economy and bled out too much health while trying to go the Heartsteel line. The game dropped him Heartsteel items, however realistically didn't have enough health to get to the Heartsteel spot, so slightly unfortunate. Not just again what the hand he got dealt. I'm recognizing he probably needs to go for a win if he wants to have any chance at getting first in the tournament.
Yeah, and if the Oni JX does crash out here in any of the bottom 4 positions, they will no longer be in with a chance, statistically, numerically, however you want to look at it, of finishing in one of those prize spots. It has been a fantastic run for them regardless, don't want to put too much of a downer on things, but I do have to respect the ability to just notice, you know, I'm not in a great spot here, it's time to just send it, I need to hope for something magnificent, I can't play for top 4, I have to play for first, and if it doesn't go well for me, it doesn't go well for me. It is what it is. We see YLCO in a sort of similar boat here. Does seem to have a much stronger board available right now. Obviously, only the 2 big shots. Does have the Heartsteel Ezreal, which is usually not the preferred, but just having that unit in, I think, is so important to be able to do as much damage to the rest of the lobby as possible. As 2 of the best in slot items, as well as the Gunblade, which can feel nice if you're getting targeted by any of the Assassin or Global Mage champions like Karthus and Akali.
Yeah, definitely. However, looking at this board, you know, it isn't exactly stable yet. You know, it is at the end of the day a Heartsteel board, and if it can manage to cap out, it could very easily win the lobby. However, it's just lacking a couple things, like I said, like maybe a 2-star legendary. So he has the Yorick at the minute. However, those aren't exactly Yorick items. Yorick, despite being Guardian, is a melee carry. So would at the end of the day like to shift those off. However, Chucky here did manage to hit Lulu through, I believe last turn actually, popped up on the side. However, yeah, being 26 health in a lobby where you have Kill 3, Gnar 3s, Senna 3s, you know, looking over at Marvello there, you know, Senna, it is one of the best comps in the game. It doesn't necessarily have as high a win percentage as something like Heartsteel. However, that's dependent on those Heartsteel players having a really good position where they're not in a lot of trouble in the early game.
That Lulu, man. We were cold, dead eyes, just emotionless, pumping out spells one after one after one after one. But Hyper Pop Blue Buff combination gets absolutely shredded in this lobby. Chucky falling down to 11 HP, but that Ezreal comp has taken very good shape. It'll be interesting to see if he can hold on to that for long enough to actually finish into one of the higher spots. The only JX obviously crashing out the round before this, as we saw, does mean that as he was already 8th before this round started and will only pick up a point from that game, mathematically can no longer finish in one of the prize positions. But fantastic job to get here. I mean, one of the top 8 players in the country still is nothing to be ashamed of. And we hope that they will put in a fantastic performance in Game 3 just to try and slide up a few positions, you know, not finish in 8th place.
And on 6-9 here, it looks like his streak is finally broken, I suspect, by Marvello, although not confirmed. You know, is a pretty good matchup for the Senna in general, and on 6-9, despite hitting his units very early, maybe doesn't have the best items. Thieves Gloves on Gnar isn't ideal. Kill without Gunblade is very susceptible to backline access. Not having any form of healing, even from the augments, is going to be very risky.
It does hit a Pentakill emblem on the Akali here, so might be able to drop out some of the units that are a bit filler, or even push for one of the higher levels of Pentakill. Obviously sitting with that 2-star Kayle in the backline and the 2-star Gnar. The KDA lineup I feel like is not terrible either. Maybe would like to just have a bit more in the front line so that they don't have to be so close to that Kayle, but it's being overall okay.
Yeah, electing to spread out his items here. His streak was in fact not broken by Marvello because he is playing him this round, and it looks like he will end up taking another loss, which, if you are a fan of, you know, the drama, you do want to see on 6-9. Maybe not, you know, go first place this lobby.
Absolutely, and I think Marvello, I mean, we mentioned the sort of toss-up between the Kayle reroll and the Senna reroll coming out on top there. Just that board so much more developed, so much stronger right now. Beedwell and On, the 2 players who finished first and second last lobby, a lot more disparity between them now. I think the lower half of this lobby just seems a lot further away from the top than it did in the last game in general. On 6-9 was able to hold on to that win streak for so long. Tons of cool is hitting more 3 stars now, but still not able to find that Punk 6, and I think is maybe getting to that point where we're forcing a little bit too hard to try and hit that. I need to start thinking about maneuvering the comp into something else with just having 4 Punk units on board.
Yeah, definitely, and was looking like he was trying to go for Viego 3, then realised he didn't maybe have enough gold to do it, especially whenever we have on 6-9 who is also looking for those Viegos. Yeah, really not an ideal spot. Is on 29 health, but will get dropped down even lower. Will likely still be 2 lives going into 3-5. However, without a very stable board and not a lot of gold in the bank, it's not looking great.
So we see Beedro and YLCO taking losses, which put them dangerously close to being knocked out of this lobby as well. The Viego headliner to show its face in the shop, but no board to build that around really. This Lulu did quite a good job overall in the early game, just getting those wins through, but has found it a bit tough to deal with so much of these late game boards, the KO boards, the Senna boards that have hit pretty much their late game power spikes. The Lulu just not able to match up to most of those champions in terms of the 3-star reroll capability. Throwing in a set now, so it does get that bruiser buff. Maybe a few more casts of the Lulu ult will be able to make this just enough to get through the carousel round, as we see Chucky and YLCO both dangerously close to being knocked out on this turn.
Yeah, with so many great comps in this lobby, the Lulu 3 in a lot of lobbies is really strong, however, doesn't really have the best augments for it, and does look like it's going to be very close actually here. The Lulu cast does come in, and will it be enough to take out the Lucian? It looks like it will be. However, more Lucian casts? No, it doesn't come through.
Yeah, that final cast was able to knock out the Lucian as well. Obviously that big polymorph, making sure the Ezreal and Lucian couldn't cast for a little while. We do see a Punk emblem appear on the board. I think I know who's going to be flying for that one. Tunso Cool already positioning towards it. It'll be interesting to see if it gets contested just to force him off it, or if they let it drop to him. See, Chucky not going for it, so Tun will be able to pick up the Punk 6, so it'll be interesting to see on 14 HP now if that's enough to transfer his lobby into enough to win this game.
And on 6-9 there, picking up an Edgelord emblem, really nice. Has 2 Edgelord in at the minute, that will give him the 3rd Edgelord. The Edgelord giving that 30% attack speed over to the kill means that she stacks up her Ginsus even faster now. So that is really, really bad for the rest of the lobby.
Absolutely, and just Rabadon's picked up here, could be placed on any of those. I don't believe there's Pandora's, no Pandora, so it might find another backline executioner like the Vex, or it might just look to push some of these items onto those stronger frontline champions. Does, yeah, take the Hodge off the Karthus, put the Rabadons on instead, just wants to get as much AP and mana regen as possible. Then might look to put the Hodge on one of those Moshers, does put it on the Gnar. Won't change too much,
really
feel nice little board shuffle.
I can really feel Beedro's pain here, hitting that headliner Akali whenever he's looking for just a normal Akali to put in over that Twitch to give him KDA and Executioner, however, just taunting him there in the shop.
So, and that Karthus will just not really doing anything to the side of Chucky, whose Lulu is pumping out those spellcasts as much as humanly possible, and will not be enough on the side of Beedro to keep himself in this game. Tunso Cool, who did just pick up the Punk 6 though, taken all the way down to 1 HP, so obviously not enough to turn that board into something that might have been enough to take over this game. The only 3 stars that were hit with that Jinx, that Vi, and that Twitch, the Twitch with no real items on him, and I think this front line is just not strong enough to keep him alive.
Yeah, no, definitely. This Vi, having only 1 tank item, really, not being able to move over the Infinity Edge, the QSS onto units which would utilize them better. Really just trying to play for the best position possible. I think recognizing that he probably didn't have a great spot. Just trying to salvage a few placements here.
Yeah, almost a bit of a pseudo front line here. Jinx getting stunned by these crowd diver comps as well, when that's pretty much your only damage that you have. It just feels so bad. Vi will go down here. That Ezreal cleaves pretty much the entire backline. Tunso Cool, who was able to outlast a few of the players in this lobby, will end up going down in 6th place. So picking up a couple of points, so not completely pulling up, but for a player that was in 6th place, that will just about put them out of reach of one of those prize finishes. We see Chucky go down on the same turn, but just outlast, so we do hit our final 4. The bonus point does come in. YU just about making it through on 6 HP, and the 4 players that are currently alive are all, I believe, in the top 5 of standing so far.
why you so many doing really well. You know, if he had gone out in 8th and on 6-9 had won this lobby, it would have been over potentially for the rest of the lobby, depending on where the other players place. However, managing to get a top 4 means it will almost certainly be all down to this last game. However, you know, it's still a lot to play for here. On why you so many has managed to salvage his board into a really good spot and has got himself into a position here where, you know, he does need a few upgrades, needs the Zed, needs the Lucian upgrade. However, could easily hit one of them and turn this around very quickly.
Sliding that Dragon's Claw into the Poppy here is getting a bit more magic resist for the front line. We do see the 2-star Kiana get hit on the bench. We'll throw that in the place of the Yone, just a stronger crowd diver option. The ultimate will maybe start printing out some items for him as well. On 6 HP, he has nothing left to lose, so just has to permanently play the strongest board. Does hit 2-star Zed as well, so a massive spike there in terms of the overall output of damage. Has a strong backline, and it's just about if that Zac and Poppy are not enough to hold out for all these units to do the damage that they need to do. This 3-star Senna will comp does cleave through that front line almost immediately though. Why EUS so many? Unless this edge roll can crit onto useful targets, which it doesn't really. Senna's still above 50% and will just start altering down those last 2 tanks. So why EUS so many? He did manage to slide into at least a top 4 finish. Does get taken down in 4th position, which means on 69 is starting to bridge that gap and starting to create a bit of space between himself and the people behind him in the overall standings.
Yeah, Marvel here really being the Grim Reaper of the lobby. However, that does end up favouring on 6-9 quite a lot. It does mean that, you know, whenever the entire lobby starts bleeding out, he had that massive HP advantage. So it is going to end up in a really nice spot. Why use so many? He's getting slightly unlucky there. Did feel like he was a couple upgrades away from, well, being stable, which could have potentially meant he could have gone level 9 and stabilized around there. Positioning wasn't ideal against the Senna either. However, that's how it goes sometimes.
Yeah, and I think the most important thing from this point on is Marvello really wants to make sure he can clear out the remaining 2 players in the lobby. Ideally for him, on 6-9 does drop in 3rd place so that he doesn't have too much of a lead on the rest of the players here. Having said that, not even tanking a single point of damage here. If Marvello is able to knock out YLCO, he does secure himself at least a top 2 finish, but YL just knocks him off his perch. And flying into this last carousel round, it would be interesting to see if we do have all 3 players standing, if YL can make it this one last round against On, or if he gets knocked out. If he does, you have to say On is in a very, very favorable position overall in the lobby.
Yeah, absolutely. However, looking at, you know, the rest of the lobby here, YLCO has managed to put together a win streak and a really strong board. He could end up taking this lobby if Marvello can't stabilize. However, you know, if Marvello is the 2nd strongest player in the lobby and YLCO is the 1st strongest player in the lobby, a lot of times how it shakes up whenever you're around this HP is that even if you're in 1st on that 50 health, you will end up, you know, going out just because of how the matchups end up going. So really just needs something a little bit extra to guarantee himself to get that 2nd spot.
Evolution now finally firing onto the kill will be able to get rid of that and survive all the way to that carousel round. So Marvello and YL both taking victories on will get knocked into that 2nd position. Does mean at least he gets a possibly more favorable pick on the carousel, but only maybe having 2 big losses left in him.
And
so we'll have to
that young Weldon free coming in with the pentakill spat as well here, that could potentially be on 6-9's out. He could go 10 pentakill here. I believe he has a pentakill headliner for his kill as well, which this could be massive.
Yeah, I mean, obviously
interesting to see or not he has in the right pentakill units for it at the minute though.
We see the Viego 2-star getting hit as well. If he's able to hit 10 pentakill, it's hard to see a way that he doesn't end up winning this lobby. Marvello currently, would you have to say the 2nd strongest lobby on the board, YL probably with the strongest, but if we can see On transition to this into that 10 pentakill, he could just completely sweep the game, and back-to-back wins on the final day would feel like an absolutely crushing blow for the rest of the lobby.
Yeah, especially coming in on joint 2nd, you know, was not far behind at all, and Why So Many has managed to do a really good job here, managing to get into top 4 from a not ideal position. However, you know, on 6-9 really has played extremely well in these last 2 games.
It does look like that K will be strong enough on this one to deal with Marvello. Not what they would have wanted to see at all, while picking up a win as well on his side of things, to be able to take 1 more just to make it to that Herald round. That's what he's looking for. 10 pentakill was hit off camera, so Is there any way these teams make it back into this one, or is this just wraps for the lobby now?
There it genuinely is a chance, I think, for YLCO. We'll see them both come together in this upcoming fight. I have seen 10 Pentakill lose consistently 2 comps before. It is very rare. However, whenever you get a very capped out board with good positioning, you can beat this comp.
Yep. I mean, hey, I asked for a 10 set. I got a 10 pentakill. Wasn't quite the one I was looking for, but at least it's a little bit, you know, it's something nice to see. You get the 2 spats, you get the headliner, you get this KO who's just absolutely pumping, but definitely can see that it's not an unbeatable board. You know, I mean, units were dropping down. Only ended up winning by about a 2-unit difference against Marvello in that earlier round. The hardest thing here for Marvello is he was probably hoping he could outlast at least one of the other members in the lobby, but now just losing every single round back to back to back to both of them, and with YL sort of rolling nice luck in the sense that he was able to play against not the 10 pentakill board that many times in a row. And sliding this Herald round means that they are now both on 10 HP, and whoever tanks the bigger loss will essentially go out before the other.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, even against that ghost board of the Heartsteel, it was very close. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens whenever both their reels meet. I think that's not looking great for Marvello here. You know, likely to be the 3rd weakest player in the lobby now. Is holding the 2-star Mordekaiser in order to grief on 6-9, you know, recognizing that he is in first at the minute, doesn't want him to get Mordekaiser 3. Does manage to go level 10 here, recognizing that is his out. Managed to hit 2-star Alawi there, and 2-star Lucian, so that could be a massive turnaround for him. I really have no idea how this could go now, you know. 10 pentakill isn't unbeatable, certainly for either of these boards. It could just be fight RNG that decides it, and, you know, between both of the Heartsteel board with true damage 2-star Lucian versus the 3-star Senna, I really have no idea how this is going to go.
Yeah, and YLCO here coming up against the, in theory, strongest board right now with on 6-9 with that 10 pentakill to KO just slowly. Slowly stacking up those gain 2 stacks on 12, 13, 14, 15. You see the Karth Assault come down and cleave out a few of the members, and it looks like it will be not actually even that close, as the pentakill board with 5 units still remaining is able to clear out YLCO, and Marvello did win on the other side against the Ghost, so YL, as much as he put up an incredibly strong fight, is taken out of the game. What remains to be seen is if in this final 2 Marvello's done enough to claim a couple of wins off on 6-9, as he was able to beat the Ghost, although we didn't see which one.
Yeah, and a really important thing to note here is the true damage on the Lucian will do really well into that pentakill, helping to chew through some of those units since they all become very tanky because of the pentakill, and doing a lot of damage as well.
Yeah, choosing to drop the Akali here in place of that Kiana, has those 2 strong items as well, which we will throw on, so that Kiana ult, in theory, will be doing so much work again. If he's able to win through these rounds, will even give him more strength going forward with extra items. We'll just be interested to see if Senna and Lucian are able to do enough damage to creep through and make it onto that KO in time. The front line of the Alawi already been taken down very early, with Lucian getting a pretty good ult off. Kale taken out to within 1 sliver of HP. Lucian firing out 1 more ult, and it was actually enough to get rid of the 10 pentakill comp. 4 units left alive. It was a massive victory for Marvello. 10 HP to 14. What can 10 pentakill comp do anymore to actually beat this line?
Well, it's all about positioning against the Senna. You don't want your units to get clumped up, and whenever you're up against a KDA pattern like this, where your units are all being frontlined, you don't have to worry about that too much. If you can get 1 unit, like a Mordekaiser, directly in front of that Senna, and then have no units adjacent to that frontline Mordekaiser, that could be a way where you mitigate that Senna damage and just try to maximize the time before for your kill to stack up. Additionally, getting opposite side of that Lucian could be really important. Yeah, and we see here he chooses to centralize his kill in order to make sure that doesn't happen.
Absolutely, it's all or nothing for both these players now on against Marvello, both within 1 loss of losing the entire lobby. Kale now is able to survive a little bit more of that first Lucian burst, but the Karth Assault coming down onto not really very useful targets. Lucian firing off another ult and will be able to clear out the Kale, and he has done just about enough. That Karth Assault not coming down. Marvello takes first place in this lobby as we see Star Guardian Lux do her thing, knock on 6-9 off his top spot. Will probably still be very happy with the 2nd place given the way the lobbies have shaped up, but fantastic for Marvello to be able to take a couple of points at least off that top position, make it a bit more interesting going into the last game of the day.
Yeah, no, that was extremely well executed by Marvello. You know, I said at the top of the show, you know, Marvello is one of the players to watch, and really showing why there. You know, executing that endgame near flawlessly, completely understanding how he was going to win. You know, I didn't even really recognize that he was going level 10, because that's something you very rarely see for a reroll comp. Sort of understanding that he can do that, went for it, managed to hit, and ended up being a 10 pentakill. It was really well played.
Absolutely, yeah. And on 699, as we said, we'll still be very happy with the way that lobby faced up. We will come back and look at how the leaderboards stand in just a minute. But before that, we will be heading into another quick break. When we come back, we have the final game of these grand finals, which will decide once and for all the champion of the UK Spring Split. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a minute.
for double kill points for Kyrie on the back of his fight. Canceling fighting forward, continuing.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the University Esports UK and Republic of Ireland Spring 2024 Teamfight Tactics season. That's probably the last time I'm actually going to get to say that for this year, so it's been a fantastic ride, Chris, and we're just a few minutes away from heading into the final game of the split, the final game of the season, the final game of this set, of this patch, of all these different things. So with all these things coming to a close, I just want to get your final thoughts before we head into the final game. I'm gonna sort of see where your head's at. Obviously we have On, who's taken a 3-point lead at the top of standings. Now, how do you think this lobby's going to shape up? What do you expect to see in this last game?
Yeah, no, I mean, this is really, anything could happen in this game. Margot made an excellent comeback there. However, unfortunately, on 6-9 going second there does mean the gap is quite far away from him. However, anybody from 4th place up with the right set of placements could end up taking the tournament. So really, this is anyone's game. Absolutely.
And sort of looking back, just before we get into this game, I wanted to get your sort of overall opinions on how you think this set shaped up. How do you think this set was in relation to other ones you've played? You know, we're not going to see competitive TFT, at least from our side, on this set anymore. So do you think this was a success? Do you think you like how things sort of ended up? Do you think you like the way that the meta was? Do you think it was balanced, etc., etc.? Just your overall thoughts on set 10 in general.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of how it started. There was a lot of comps were too powerful. However, once it did manage to get to 14.3, 14.4 that we're on right now, you know, it is extremely balanced. I would say one of the most balanced TFT has ever been. Whenever you look at the stats, you know, that really does reinforce it. I think the only comp there is Senna reroll being on a 4.3 average placement whenever you look at the GM plus stats, and then everything else is 4.4 or higher. So I mean, really, really close average placement.
Yeah, of course, and just to catch up with the way that the leaderboard is right now, for those of you who maybe didn't see the first 2 games, or those who haven't been paying attention to the scores, currently there are a few people who have already been knocked out of contention for that top spot, so obviously sad for them, but they will have a chance to maybe climb up the ladder a little bit, so hopefully they still play to their best abilities, because they can still impact the way that things finish. As well as that, On right now, 3 points at the top of the leaderboard. If he is able to finish in the top 3 position, he wins no matter what anyone else does. If On is to come 4th place, then as long as he outperforms YU West, then he still wins no matter what. So really the onus is on to just not have a stinker of a game, right? So as long as you're finishing in that top 4 position, you are pretty much taking it for your win. But we will see how that fares as we are ready to head into our final game of the year. So for one last time, myself and Chris, we're going to see you on the arena.
Yeah, no, definitely. And you know, the rest of the lobby definitely recognizing that on 6-9 does need to, the game is in his hands, and it'll be interesting to see whether people do actively grief him in order to try and bring him down. You know, understanding that only the top 4 players are looking to, in the contention to win, does mean that it's really only on those 3 to bring him down. The rest are playing just to try and maximize their own average placement and not bring other people down. So it'll be very interesting to see if that impacts people's decisions at all.
Absolutely, we see the wandering trainers get picked up, so all these players will get their choice, or not their choice, but a random selection of 3 emblems, which will, I assume, impact quite heavily the way that they choose to build for this game. As we see, On does have Disco, Rapid Fire, and True Damage, 3 quite strong traits to be able to choose from, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, whenever you see True Damage, Rapid Fire, I mean, you're almost always thinking Senna. I mean, there's no way. Whenever Senna is one of the highest average placement comps in the game, in fact, the highest average placement comp in the game, you get handed this on to one, and you only need to go 4th in order to win the tournament. Definitely something that in almost every situation you would pick up. However, reroll comp is very risky. You know, if other people start picking up Sennas in order to grief you, you know, are you able to pivot out of it? Not really whenever you have these stats, or these spats on already on your dummy. So very interesting to see how this game ends up going.
Absolutely, as we see, we will slowly, as we get to see the rest of the lobby, see how their boards have been impacted. I think one of the main things I'm looking out for is how much they take these Wandering Trainers into account, right? Like, are you trying to hit all 3 of the things you've been given, or are you just going to settle for turning one of them into something really big? We see obviously that Echo come down for On quite early, which feels very nice. If you can get 4 true damage in on 2-1, that might feel incredibly good. If you maybe just throw components on units to get those early game ultimate buffs, obviously the Echo with the healing, the Cannon with the AoE stun, etc, etc.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you're given those spats, you know, it is almost always a grief to yourself to try and get all 3 spats in. Normally you just try and play around 2, or if you have a very good direction towards one comp, even just play around one of them. However, you know, if someone has ended up hitting maybe like Disco, Dazzler, Hyper Pop, I have seen it before, it does happen sometimes, you know, it's just a very clear and obvious what you're going to end up playing.
Absolutely, as we see these components start to come down onto these units. Does take the cannon off the board because he wasn't able to hit 4 true damage, but will have that critical of on the Echo, which means at least getting the ultimate in power and a couple of nicer items on, you know, that Urgot with the extra AD, a bit more attack speed for the Jinx, and as well as that, just having the Wandering training dummy able to tank up a little bit of the enemy's damage.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the Scrappy Inventions getting a set of full items as well, Scrappy Inventions working really well with true damage comps because it allows you to spread out your items and turns those components into full items. So it does a really nice job of, you know, maximizing item value with true damage, especially whenever you've already got that emblem and are definitely leaning towards that center reroll. And with a pickup like Scrappy Inventions means that you're probably leaning even more towards it. However, looking on the other side, we have the rapid fire augment combined with 2 Sennas on bench, so could definitely be looking to contest that Senna reroll with this Punk from Beedwo.
Absolutely, yeah, and you mentioned the Punk obviously had the Punk emblem on the Wandering Trainer, as well as having the Punk Vi, so 4 Punk on the board on 2-1 with only 2 Punk units just feel really good in itself, and does mean you're able to hit 6 Punk very, very early in the game and capitalize on that as soon as possible, just to sort of start to pull away massively from the rest of the lobby. Having said that, the 2 players that we're most focused on so far, with YU and On, only 2 HP away from each other. We've only seen 1 combat round, but these are going to be the names that stand out to us, the only 2 players really with an actual chance of taking this lobby home. Having said that, it's not completely over for YLCO, but things would have to go incredibly well for them to be able to pick up a win here.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think the most important thing is, as we said at the start, would points impact how people are playing? And I think the answer is almost certainly yes. The only JX here having a Senna already stands looking like he is going to be playing towards the Senna reroll, and on the opposite side having another player with 2 Sennas on bench. So many Sennas out of pull already. It'll be really interesting to see whether YU So Many does end up choosing to go towards that Senna reroll, or whether he potentially pivots out into something else.
And importantly for those players in lower positions, you know, still there are things to play for. You know, you don't want to crash out last. You don't want to just go away on a loss. So if you can put together a good performance in your last game, it does still feel good for yourself. And having the knowledge that you were able to maybe shift the way that the actual final standings went, maybe climb a few positions and just finish in a, you know, top 6, top 5, and finish with a win under your belt will feel very nice. So I think nobody's going to be treating this as like just a free game. Nobody's going to be treating this as just another game of TFT. I think it's still going to be very competitive, and it'll be interesting to see how, obviously, our 2 main players perform, but the 6 around them as well, and how they choose to interact with each other.
YLCO here ends up taking Gold Collector, however doesn't have a particularly strong board. It is going to be on 3 loss streak with that Gold Collector. Definitely not where you want to be with that augment. You want to be winning fights and trying to snowball a massive advantage with, you know, winning all these fights and getting gold while doing it. So definitely not where he wants to be right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the most hype thing that could happen for us technically, if On was to come in 4th place, right, just get knocked out in 4th place a little bit early, and YU West kept going, it would mean that YU West would have to finish I believe in 1st or 2nd to actually win the lobby. So no favoritism in anyone's way. I just think that would make the lobby very fun to watch, because it would give us something to cheer for. It would give us something in those final rounds to see. If On does make it to the final 3, that does mean it's decided straight from there, so makes those last few rounds just feel a little bit less impactful in a way.
Yeah, like myself, you are all about the drama. I love it. However, looking over here at YU So Many's board, almost certainly playing towards the Heartsteel line with this, has the Even Shroud Slam, the Ginsus, and the Deathblade. Augment choices likely weren't great, getting a cut above is really not a great augment. It's essentially just an item. The effect itself doesn't actually pop up very often. Again, we see another Senna on bench. I think we've maybe got 7 Sennas out of the pool at the minute. There are a lot of people angling towards it or intentionally trying to grief on 6ix9ine, recognizing that they do need to bring him down a little bit if they are going to have any chance of winning the lobby.
Absolutely, yeah, and why US so many? I mean, you have to think he's the one that's going to sort of benefit the most from this, right? Because sort of slipping under the radar in that second position, a person who was first before this game starts, a little bit sad there. Jinx does live on 1 HP and will end up in a 1v1 against the Wandering Trainer, which I think you know who wins that one. Maybe just the placement issue there could have made that Wandering Trainer tank at the beginning so the units were able to clear out the rest. But one loss won't feel too terrible right now. Obviously, Beedwo, the only person left alive in this lobby with 100% win rates. We'll want to keep that alive going into the Krug round.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. That Wandering Trainer placement actually is extremely important for why you use so many, why you use so many being the most likely person to cause an upset right now to contest on 6ix9ine, and that Wandering Trainer placement has likely just cost him a 5 streak into Krugs, which is likely, say 10 gold-ish. That is a phenomenal swing that just happened off that one mistake.
Absolutely, and we do see quite a few people with the Punk emblem on their Wandering Trainer. Obviously, not all of them really opting to force into that 6 Punk line. I think just too many people contesting it would make all of them crash out quite early. So we do see, with that Jinx being played by so many of these different teams early game, I think maybe they're just being sort of dissuaded from committing to a full 6 Punk line, but whoever does end up lasting longer than the rest could be persuaded to slide into that comp and start rolling for those 3 stars more.
Yeah, absolutely, and it does look like Beedwo here is trying to angle this Punk reroll, is doing it from a win streak position, which is where you always want to be with a board like Jinx reroll. However, interestingly, is choosing not to get rid of his Vi headliner, does want to go for 3-star Vi and 3-star Jinx. Understandable, a lot of the time whenever you don't have Jinx headliner, you do need to hit it on 3-1, because on 3-2 you automatically level up to level 5, and then that affects your headliner odds. You only have 30% chance of seeing 1-cost headliners, which isn't great. Does accidentally kill a few 2-costs there by not clearing his bench space. However, it does look like he's going for 3-star Taric, 3-star Vi, and 3-star Jinx. Didn't really have any other options.
Absolutely, and we see the 3-star Taric sort of being covered as well, maybe just as a replacement to one of the other Guardian champions. Could also just be a placeholder and eventually slide away from it, but will be nice to have with the extra shielding alongside those frontline champions. The Pantheon is not in a very strong position now anyway, and sitting on 4 Punk until you get that Twitch, you're not going to be putting Pantheon in for any reason anyway. Does actually hit that Twitch now as I say that. 3 stars Taric and 2 stars Pantheon all on the same turn, so once they hit level 5, put that Twitch in. That's Punk 6 with the Guardians and with that Vi in the front line as well. The comp will start to hit a very, very strong spike in the next few rounds.
Yeah, definitely rolling a little bit where you wouldn't expect. I'd say a lot of the time you would definitely, whenever you're this far off hitting Jinx and the Vi, which are your primary carries, the Taric obviously being unitemized, definitely not an irrelevant hit, but not something you would be expecting to carry your board. So a little bit unorthodox there, however just trying to maximize his win streak likely, and as long as he can continue that win streak, definitely won't be punished for it.
Yeah, does immediately build the Protectors and the Redemption on the Pantheon as well, just trying very hard to secure that victory. Jinx getting close to being 3-starred now, does hit level 5, so we'll have Punk 6 available as we go into the next fight. But now we travel to the bottom of the board. Tansoku, level 6 here, sitting on 65 HP, having a little bit of a Mosher line being built right now. No EDM buff active, just the country Mosher with Jax in the middle. I don't think I've ever seen this variation of whatever it is I'm looking at, but having the country and executioner traits on the training dummy, it does feel like it could lead into something really strong if you get some kind of Samira line available.
Yeah, no, if you can hit 7 country, that is how the country board does end up winning games. It's not easy to get there, being a 3-cost reroll, needing the 3-star Samira doesn't have either Infinity Edge components open right now. Infinity Edge being a really important item to get on that Samira. However, having Executioner Emblem and Country Emblem plus GS and Last Whisper, those are two of Samira's best items after Infinity Edge, so definitely looks like he could be trying to lean towards it. However, with that Twin Terror, leaves a lot of questions about what he does end up going towards.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned obviously how those two traits do work well together. It does have the Dazzler as well, so I mean, not really gonna change much about the way they feel, but if they do manage to make it late in the game, we'll be able to just, you know, chuck in a Ziggs and get suddenly Hyperpop Dazzler off that one champion, so could have some degree of impact. I really want somebody to find a way to incorporate all three traits basically into their comp, because I feel like it's really nice when you can make that work. Where you see like Dazzler and Rapid Fire, you don't see much of a way other than having like a Bard and a Lucian together, things like that, but trying to incorporate all three feels like a sort of monumental task, which would be cool if somebody could overcome.
Yeah, and the only JX here, I really hope he has scouted properly and is looking at his matchups. Putting in this Senna headliner is no joke, can definitely cause you to win in a fight unexpectedly, and whenever you're going for that big Heartsteel cash out, you cannot afford a loss, especially when you're on 59 health already.
I think the kill will be strong enough to just deliver that loss. Obviously Cassante was looking like he was tanking for a bit too much there, but with the Senna getting cleared out now, it's quite nice because he's able to clear out pretty much the entire board, except that Ken is living on a sliver of HP, but does make the loss a little bit less hefty, and we'll be sitting on quite a big cash out, which I assume he's going to take.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, if he has scouted properly, which I suspect he most likely has, you know, maximizing the amount of units you kill will cause that Heartsteel cash out to be bigger. However, it is extremely risky, and a lot of players just don't want to risk it because you never know when an opponent might just sell their board or make it intentionally weaker, not slam items just to grief you. So always have to be cautious of that risk.
Absolutely. As we head into the 3-5 stage of the game, just to get a little bit of a recap of how people are faring so far. The two people, YE West and On, literally one position away from each other, so already heating up with how this lobby will end up in the final stages of the game. As we mentioned before, if On is able to finish in a top 3 position, he will claim the championship for himself. So it's about, of course, trying to finish as high as possible for people like YE West, but also they need to make sure that On isn't in a winning position. They need to try and knock him out in whatever way possible, because the game isn't completely in their own hands.
Yeah, and looking at our top 4 at the minute, YLCO, lowest HP of the bunch, however, is in a very nice Heartsteel position, has the Jazz emblem on his dummy, combined with blue buff, red buff, and a gold collector. If he can manage to just finish off his board here, having obviously an augment that gives him a Tactician's Crown as well once he starts rolling all that gold, could potentially allow him to cap out, which being on the lowest points of the bunch as well, could be his one way of really taking this lobby down.
On tanking another loss series one, and every single one of these losses does feel like it could be just bring us one step closer to making that lobby just a little bit more interesting with each stage that goes by.
Yeah, absolutely. And still rolling for the Jinx headliner. Finally decided to stop slow rolling on 2. Maybe not liking his matchups, having YU so many in his matchup pool right now. Maybe looking over there and thinking that I need a Jinx 3 to beat this. Does end up hitting the Jinx 3. Did in fact, or sorry, he never had, never had a Vi headliner to begin with. However, has picked up the Pantheon headliner, but unable to fit it in to his composition.
Yeah, I think he did obviously have that Vi headliner before, but opted to trade it out for the Pantheon headliner instead. Kept the Punk headliner just to be able to force that 6 Punk. Does still have the 3-star Taric in as well, which like feels like it's going to get less and less useful as a frontline champion the more this game goes on. Obviously, Amumu quite popular in this line just because you get the Vexen as well, then suddenly you have Emo, suddenly you have Executioner, and Amumu in general is just a much stronger unit than most of the low-cost Guardians in the game.
Yeah, absolutely, and YEU so many here really does have quite a nice spot, I would say. You know, unfortunately that one loss early on to Beidwo has cost him the 100 streak. You know, we have mentioned there before, it looks like because he's managed to continue the streak for so long, it's probably cost him maybe closer to 20 gold, I would say, just because of how the streaks work now. So really unfortunate for him not being in as dominant a position as he is at the minute. However, it's still in a really nice spot.
Yeah, and I have to say, the longer this lobby goes on, the more it becomes about how healthy On is, right? Because as soon as we get into the stage where these people at the bottom are dropping out one by one, and you're looking at On leaving people in his dust, all he has to do is make that top 4, and then immediately the scene changes. He has to outlast one person to win the game entirely. So the only JX, Tons So Cool, YLCO, people like this, the longer they can stay alive, the longer they can start chipping away, the more impact it'll have on the overall standings. So we see YEU just chucking some items down onto the center, getting the Horror, getting the Runans, a bit more AoE damage, into a absolutely monumental double crown set. Only 1 star, but an absolute behemoth of a tank right now. If he gets one more cast off with that shield, might be enough to give Aphelios one ult as well, but I think this Senna Aphelios Jinx in the backline will maybe have too much damage to deal with once they get rid of this training dummy, and yeah, the Senna ult coming down as well. So the only Jax dropping into quite a dangerous position here, 19 HP, so possibly 2 losses away from getting knocked out. This seems like his comfort zone though. This seems like where he's been pretty much every game.
Yeah, no, definitely. However, looking at the augment choices here for why you use so many, almost snap re-rolling the other 2, maybe not in a too big fail spot. Inspiring Epitaph is a really good combat augment. However, re-rolls the other one, elects not to take the attack speed and just wants that extra frontline. However, on 6ix9ine, we haven't checked in with him in a while. Be really interested to see where his board is at. You know, being the leader, had a very clear Senna spot early on. However, being so contested, I really wonder where that's ended up. However, looking over at the only JX here, you know, really is on last-ditch effort to try and salvage something. Manages to reroll into an Aegis of the Legion. That is one of the most powerful support items in the game at the minute. However, still having 1-star frontline, 1-star Ezreal with items, your only 2-star Zed without items, this really isn't where you want to be, especially going up to this punk board, which has accumulated so many stacks over the course of the game. However, the solution is taking Jinx down very low, just not able to kill it yet. Ezreal comes in but does miss the Jinx as well. Can Lucian finish it off? However, Hodge is healing it up. The front line has just whittled away.
Yeah, and you mentioned the front line on the side of the only JX as well. I think, you know, once he's 2-star that set especially, that's such a massive power spike with a double crown and the Warmugs, just amplifying all 3 of those items immediately, and you're surviving for so much longer. You saw the Lucian there, only a 1-star, but already doing so much work. In dealing with that Jinx, you know, 2 ults almost cleaved her all the way down. If she had no Omnivamp, would have been enough to kill her as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that board actually does develop, because the makings of something very strong there. If you can 2-star the Lucian, you can 2-star the front line. If you can get better items onto those carries and onto those tanks, you suddenly become one of the stronger comps in the lobby overall. Striking up on the higher side of things, YE West with about 22 HP on his arch rival here on 6ix9ine, and just wants to last as long as humanly possible to make sure that he finishes in one of those top 4 positions.
Yeah, and you know, checking in back in with on 6ix9ine now, did end up getting forced off the center line, recognizing that there were just too many people holding those Sennas. Instead has chosen to go for a vertical true damage line, something that really isn't seen very often. However, manages to hit the Ezreal, or sorry, not the Ezreal, the Viego with true damage spat. That is 2 true damage spats. If he manages to push to level 9 and get in a true damage headliner, we could see 9 true damage, which could just take the tournament for him.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it would be quite a nice way to close things out as well if you're able to hit such a strong line like that with the emblems from the Wandering Trainer as well. We see the 7 country already being hit here with that 2 executioners, so if Ton can start getting some of these stronger units, obviously won't affect the overall standings and doesn't have a chance to win the lobby, but the more of these comps we start to see, the more chance there is of those players that we're so focused on crashing out early. On now, under 50 HP, obviously still in 3rd place, so still around where he wants to be, but so far behind YE West that it feels like it could be closer than we thought in the latter stages of this one.
Yeah, absolutely. This board definitely isn't ideal, you know, only getting 1 pair in for that Twin Terror. Getting the second country emblem is very nice, however it doesn't have 3 items on any of his units at the minute, which at 25 health really isn't where you want to be. However, having that 7th country and the 3-star Dreadsteed come in will buy a lot of time for these Samiras to pump out the damage. However, whether it's going to be enough is going to be very close here as the Dreadsteed does fall, and the Aphelios does take down the Samira.
Ton dropping to 14 HP here, while CO a little bit as well. On was able to pick up a victory in that round at least, so extending his lifespan a little bit more here. Again, it's completely about who he can beat out rather than the people above him in his own eyes. If he were to finish in 3rd position here, that would be enough to claim victory, no matter what the 2 people ahead of him did, so they might have to start taking a bit more proactive action to get him out of this lobby. Looking at Marvello's board here, almost on the best in slot headliner. Ezreal does have a pretty okay front line starting to be built up, but not quite enough to hold on to some of these stronger carries yet. Obviously only 1 star on the Yorick, 1 star on the Blitzcrank, and then the Yone and Set not too tanky either, with no items, only being 1 stars, but does at least have the unified resistance, making them able to maybe tank a little bit more. I think that blue buff on the Ezreal will make such a difference, though, being able to cast that much more often.
Yeah, absolutely. For Marvello right now, it's really all about the 5 heart steal. He is playing for another cash out, and if he can manage to get giant cash out, isn't going to cash out just yet, is going to go into stage 5 where you'll get even bigger rewards. If he can manage to get up towards the 200, could manage to find something to just set his board above everybody else.
Absolutely. Take a look at Chucky here. Tunsoku did crash out into 8th place, obviously just 1 HP away from surviving there, so didn't quite make it to the Raptors round. Won't affect their position overall too much, and won't change what they gain, but fantastic performance overall for them. Just want to say congratulations to all these players as they fall out one by one, because they did so well to make it into this stage of the tournament.
Yeah,
the top 8 in the UK.
Had such a good day 1, managed to be in joint second. Day 2 really hasn't gone his way. A lot happened that was out of his control, slightly unfortunately, but that is how TFT goes sometimes.
Yeah, and with every player that drops out, a smile spreads on the face of 169, and a frown probably on the face of YES West as he realizes he has more work to do if he wants to claim this victory. So currently 7 HP, 17, 19, 27, and 49. That's what On has to beat if he wants to be able to claim that title for himself. Heading into this post-Raptors round, the boards have pretty much solidified themselves. A few minor changes as we see. NJX going into the board with pretty much no finished items. I think starting to just find out where he wants to put these items here, YLCO, but on 7 HP, might not have left himself enough time to actually put these where he wants them. I think just probably can get 1 more cast down into the... Yeah, no, I think he messed it up a bit here. And the only JX will be able to just take this round and knock him out quite early. So 7th place for YLCO, I think either he wasn't expecting to lose that hard, or he just kind of had a little brain freeze and wasn't sure where to put his items. But again, falling out in 7th place, Chucky down to 1 HP. With every person that falls out, On gets 1 step closer to victory.
Yeah, no, really unfortunate for YLCO there. Getting very dizzy, ended up missing most of his units, it looked like. That caused him to be unsure about what he actually wanted. Had things like Ezreal items / Zed items, however no Ezreal or Zed to put them on, just caused him to get very confused about where he actually wants his items. However, Chucky now finding the Jin 2 on the turn he pops his last stand. Chucky here could be the player that's contesting for that 1st place.
Yeah, the Jin 2 with that headliner Zac as well, such an absolutely monumental frontline unit. Out the triple crown guard on the Poppy and the Zac as well. As long as the Ezreal stays off his Jin long enough for him to get all of those violins down and start lasering and beaming down those frontline units, that should be enough for him to do what he needs to do. But having said that, the Zac falls as Ezreal's 3rd ult comes through. Jin, too many units for him to deal with, and Chucky will fall just as he hit such an incredible power spike. It felt like he might have had enough to do quite well in this lobby, but does get taken down. Minus 13, falls into 6th place. And we're starting to get into the real nitty-gritty of this tournament. On 6969 has dropped to 20 HP, which means he's not quite where he wants to be. The Oni JX has started win streaking here as well, so if he's able to finish above on 69, this is going to get really interesting.
Yeah, and it does look like one of our players' win streak is going to end. It'll be interesting to see whether YEU so many can end up beating the only JX that would knock, would allow him to continue his win streak. However, it looks like Vidro here is going to end up fighting YEU so many as real, which means that the only JX is likely to play YEU so many's Ghost. So they will end up avoiding each other for a little bit longer.
As crazy as it sounds, if you're YEU, you kind of want the only JX to stay alive in this lobby, right? So you probably don't even feel too bad if you lose to him and keep his win streak going, as On69 does drop down to 6 HP, or the only JX keeping his win streak alive. If OnJX can't pull a win together here, that means this lobby is entirely in YEU's hands, and he could snatch this win in the final game of the tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, YEU so many coming, still continuing his win streak into this carousel round, and having On69 going down all the way to 6 HP. Why On69 really getting quite unlucky. His augments, his spatulas really indicated to play Senna reroll. However, unfortunately, the rest of the lobby saw him up at the top there and couldn't allow that to happen, which has allowed YEU so many to sneak under the radar a little bit, and he's managed to put together a very strong win streak.
And it all comes down to this round now for On6969. If he's able to stabilize, if he's able to turn at least one win just so he can make it into that top 4. If he crashes out in 5th place and misses out on that bonus point as well, that will feel like a massive blow after the first 2 lobbies he had today, setting himself up with such a great start. That Akali headliner with the 2 Hodges on it will be quite good. Not even making use of all 9 board slots though.
He is 1 Kiana away from 9 true damage, rolled down and missed the Kiana.
Yeah.
It hurts so much. That Kiana could have been the difference between him winning and losing this tournament. However, will he be able to hang on for a little bit longer? The more shots he can see, the more chance he will have at finding this Kiana headliner. Or finding the JX here, still win streaking, is going to knock him out. And that puts the onus on the rest of the lobby to see whether or not they can take down YEU so many, and whether or not On69 or YEU so many ends up winning the tournament.
And as Chibi delivers that finishing blow, On69 will crash out in 5th place here, meaning he misses out on that bonus point, and meaning YEU has the chance to pick up the entire tournament of this final game. Marvello on 1 HP. If he gets knocked out next, that means that YEU can finish lowest 3rd place. On6969 after this game currently on 41 points. YEU on 34 before this one started, which means that he needs 7 points to tie, but if it was a tie, he'd lose on the tiebreaker, which means I believe he needs 2nd place or higher to win. I'll wait for confirmation. Yeah, so top 2 for YEU means he wins the tournament. Anything less than that, and On still takes this one, which means it's all down to that 1st place player right now.
Yeah, really key that On69 didn't manage to get into that top 4 position just by missing out on it, going out in 5th. You know, top 4 getting an extra point in this format really does make a huge difference.
You see Marvello surviving here on 1 HP, taking another round off, but if 2 people get knocked out here, if the only JX and Marvello get knocked out before YEU does, that's all he needs. And sitting on 86 HP, winning 8 rounds in a row, that headliner Ziggs, full build, 2-star Lucian, 2-star Thresh, and a nice little Thieves Gloves. Illaoi has hit 4 Dazzler with 3 Jazz, does have Heartsteel still just in his comp, getting passive income over all of these rounds, so in a fantastic position to carry this one home.
Yeah, no, you could be feeling great if you're YEU so many right now for Dazzler and as well with the Hyper Pop Ziggs, Dazzler Ziggs headliner. Really nice, could even potentially push to level 10 here. I don't think there's going to be a lot of boards contesting him. Could potentially even get a 3rd item for his Lucian right now. It gets offered to Gwynsu's Ridgeblade, which would be a very nice addition, does end up picking it up. And yeah, obviously with the Dazzler emblem and the Rapid Fire emblem already on his dummy, looks like he isn't going to go to level 10, however is going to try and make his board even stronger right now, because knowing that he probably only needs a 2nd to secure victory, just trying to make sure that he guarantees that 2nd.
And with the only JX and Marvello coming up against each other, that means that one of them will be knocked out at the end of this round. So most of the work here, it seems like, being done for YEU, as all he has to do is outlast one more person once this round is finished. And depending on how his round goes against Vidro, it will show us sort of the way his comp is looking. It seems like quite a convincing victory. Both backliners of the Ziggs and the Lucian just burning through that punk line. Marvello getting executed off screen means that YEU, with about a 60 HP lead on the person in second place, only has to outlast one of these players. And with the way that the rounds are going to shape up, I feel like that's not too much to ask of him.
Yeah, definitely. Looking over at the OnlyJX's board here, manages to find a headliner Kiana. However, that Kiana tends to be one of the 5 costs that you'd like much earlier in order to generate those items. Isn't the strongest 5 cost anymore. Took quite a lot of nerfs from where she used to be. However, is going to fight Bedo's Ghost, which means Bedo is going to be fighting Yusomeni's Real, which isn't going to go well for Bedo. I suspect Bedo is likely going to lose almost all of his fights from here on out. Playing that punk really early on is all about the win streak, and continuing that to preserve HP for whenever you bleed out. So it's going to be a question of whether only JX goes out before Bedo, I would suspect, and it does look like Yusumeni is going to take first place, although it could potentially get an upset in the last
Something
fight.
crazy could happen. Something crazy could happen.
Well, we might have to see 5 crazy things happen,
Yeah,
considering
absolutely.
Yusumeni's HP. It has been done before, however, it is extremely rare.
Yeah, and the problem is obviously because they will have to face each other at some point, it means that the OnlyJX or Bedo, I don't think will be able to just live long enough, even if YU was to start picking up losses. So all that has to happen now, as long as YU can take out one of these players, as long as he can win the next round, he will take home the championship. We do get to see Bedo here coming up against the OnlyJX, yeah. So one of these players will get knocked out, which means that YU will be taking the 2024 Grand Championship. However, give some love to these players on your screen right now. Made it this far, pushed it to the limit, made sure that On6969 wasn't able to win this game. So maybe, you know, a little bit of influence from the lobby around them. The OnlyJX will at least confirm himself a place in the top 2 for this game, get himself as many points as possible, and we will see how the rest of this game plays out. Is YU going to be able to close this one out in style and take home a win in the game that gave him the title?
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's going to be any interesting spatulas here. One interesting thing to note was Bedo did end up not hitting any bows all game whenever you're playing Jinx for your old Jinx. Obviously, almost always wanting 3 bow items. Very unfortunate for him. However, did a really good job salvaging that 3rd place. However, it's going to be all down to whether the OnlyJX can manage to string together a couple of fights against this board. However, 4 Dazzler, Headliner Ziggs, 2-star Lucian, 2-star Alawi, 2-star Thresh, full items on all of them. It's going to be a really tall ask.
Absolutely. And with 5 seconds left on that timer, feels like we're that much time away from watching YEU take down this lobby and to pick up the championship for the Spling Split of the 2024 University Esports UK and Ireland Teamfight Tactics Championship, but leave it to him to make that decision. That Lucian and Ziggs just doing so much work on the backline. Those frontline champions so strong now as well. Lux getting a double cast, but not hitting Ziggs with the second. He stays alive just about long enough. Lucian dodging away as well, getting one more cast off, getting tied by the Lux ult there, but the Thresh still full HP. These champions all still alive on the back line, and he will end it out in style. The Ahri flying around, getting that finisher onto the OnlyJX. Congratulations to the winner of the 2024 Spring Split, YEU. And there you have it, man. I genuinely, before this game started, I didn't think it was going to happen. And in my head, I was praying. I was like, I want it to be more tense than just On getting top 4 and winning. And he crashed out, didn't even make top 4. Slid out in 5th place, which was the crucial point, because if he just made it 1 place higher, he would have got those extra 2 points. And suddenly the entire landscape of the tournament would have changed. But incredible work for YEU to actually get 1st place in that final game, you know, rose to the occasion. Obviously the lobby ended up working out very well for him with On crashing out early, and it meant that he had the onus put upon himself. But once again, congratulations. YEU is your Spling Split champion. Chris, do you have any final words to say on that game?
No, I just want to say really well played from all of our players this weekend. You know, they all put up really good performances. You know, Marvello strung together some really nice games there. On 6-9, just getting, I'd say, quite unlucky in that last game. You know, having those emblems, trying to play around them, just not working out for him.
Absolutely. And I will say it's been a fantastic ride overall for these last 6 games. no time to say goodbye just yet, because before we do that, we do have to go through to an interview. So I'll leave all the soppy sentimental stuff for a bit later. I'll let you guys go, have a little drink, have a little break. When we do come back, we're going to have an interview, hopefully with the tournament champion. So don't go anywhere. Be right back with our closing words and a final interview.
You must think that I'm a restless case because I ran away, because I ran away. If you listen to the words I say, you know that I'm okay, you know it's just a phase. Don't think I'm leaving cause I'm not at all, and if you get hurt it's unintentional. I just wanted you to realize that I'm the one you like, that I'm the one you like. So where do we go? Where do we go from here? Where do we go? Where do we go? I don't know. Where do we go? Where do we go from here? Where do we go? Where do we go from here? Where do we go? Where do we go from here? Baby, I've been busy missing you. Say, have you missed me too? Say, have you missed me too? Was this intermission good for you? Yeah, was it good for you? Or are you just confused? Don't think I'm leaving cause I'm not at all. So if you get hurt, it's unintentional. And I know that what I did was typical. I just need I do. All I ever wanted was to make it through. Tell me, how about you? How about you? So where do we go? Where do we go from here? Where do we go? Where do we go? Where do we go? Where do we go from here? Where do we go? Where do we go from here? Where do we go? Where do we go from here? Where do we go? Where do we go from
No, they're not. Super with the current and OnlyFans putting on this round of everyone, if you hate snakes, then this snake will end it here for the double kill points from Kyrie on the back of this fight. Cancel the fight before we can see.
Good evening, everyone, again. For one last time, welcome back to the University Esports UK and Republic of Ireland Spring 2024 Teamfight Tactics Grand Finals. We are just about ready to cool down and send you guys off for the rest of the night. Before that, we have been joined by the lovely, the fantastic, the victor of tonight's tournament, Kenneth. Kenneth, you want to introduce yourself to everyone? at home?
Hi, I'm Kenneth. I'm third year in University of Exeter. Yeah.
Fantastic. So Kenneth, just obviously congratulations on your win. We have a couple of questions we wanted to ask you, and then we'll send you off to celebrate the victory in however you want to do that. So first of all, I just wanted to say, coming into today, obviously you were top place after last week's tournament. You lost a few points in the first 2 games, but then managed to pull it back in that last game. What was that feeling like for you, and what was it? What was your sort of plan heading into that 3rd game, knowing that you had to make up that many points, knowing that the lobby wasn't entirely up to you?
It was quite clutch, I would say, because obviously I was lose by like 2 points or 3 points.
Yeah.
But all I need to do is like win the first place. So I have a mindset which I have to win this game. So yeah, I just forced the hostile, and then I just like win it. Yeah.
Yeah, what was your overall strategy for the day? You know, coming into the tournament, obviously you played really well throughout the day to get here. You know, did it change throughout the event, or were you just playing how you wanted to play the entire time?
Today I was like just go with the flow with the cards. Like whatever it comes, I just play. Like for the first game, I played disco, but it wasn't going well because obviously like I had a long winning streak, but at the end I still got 5th place. That was very unfortunate. And for the second game, it was like a hostile again. I was trying not to play the lucky game of TFT, so I didn't like roll that much in like 6 or 7. Tried to hit 8 for the matter. Yeah.
Fantastic. And one thing that I just wanted to ask, obviously you've won this tournament now, you have this massive bounty you're about to collect of that prize pool. So what are you going to spend that money on? Do you have any idea? Is that going to anything specifically? Is there anything you had on your mind?
Not really. I still have no clues. Yeah.
Fair enough. That's fair enough. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Kenneth. Before you go, if you just want to give a quick shout out to anyone or anyone you want to say thank you to or just name drop, then please do so now.
Quick shout out to my girlfriend and my friends, Lemon and Justin. They really helped me a lot with TFT, especially to like hit the master rank. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, fair enough. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Kenneth. I hope you have a lovely rest of your evening. Congratulations again on the victory. Me and Chris will now take over to just say goodbye to everyone. So, see you soon.
Yeah. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, I feel like everyone always, every time I do these TFT streams and we ask the victors about like who they want to shout out, it always ends up being a girlfriend, which makes me... I don't know, it's lovely. It's lovely to see the support that these players get. It's lovely to see the support that the TFT community in general has, and it's just a fantastic another season to be a part of. So, Chris, obviously I'm going to throw to you if you want quickly to just say any final words, any last messages, any shout-outs you want to give, any people in your life that you want to say thank you to really quickly. The floor is yours.
Yeah, well, I'll give a quick shout out to my guys from Belfast who some of them might be watching right now. They were given the link, get a little bit of support, and shout out to you for being my amazing caster for first time casting TFT. So thank you very much.
Thank you. That means a lot to me, man. People don't usually do that. That hit me in my heart. Anyway, to all of you at home, obviously I want to say thank you to you guys. Very, very, very big shout out to everyone working behind the scenes on today's production. So Curl is Becca, Alex, Chris, yourself, obviously, everyone who worked on this production. Absolutely fantastic job. We went through today with not a single issue as far as I'm aware, and every year this just gets better and better. So thank you to everyone involved. Thank you to everyone who's watching from home. Thank you to Chris, and from all of us here at UK University Esports, I hope you have a lovely rest of your evening, and make sure you guys stick around for the next few weeks as we have tons more content to bring you with the other games and their playoffs and finals that are coming up. So thank you. Have a lovely evening, and from all of us here, good night.
I think I like it.